Chapter 446. Everyone walked slowly, and they soon arrived at D. Tion's territory. D. Tion, by G. The Sky Azure Bull Python, and Shao were all here. As for the Titan giant ape's corpse, it had already disappeared. The Sky Azure Bull Python and the others must have buried it. When they saw Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna arrive, all the soul beasts turned to look at them. When they saw Yin Xiaozhe and Ma Xiaodao behind Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna, all the soul beasts were a little surprised. Didn't Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna go in alone? How come there were two more people suddenly? D. Tion. Gu Yuna's voice sounded. Master. D. Tion bowed in response. Gu Yuna pointed at Yin Xiaozhe and said, send him out. Also, tell the soul beasts in the great star Do forest not to attack him. Yes, master. D. Tion replied. Uncle Yin, you can go out with D. Tion. Lu Yuan said plainly. Yes, master. Yin Xiaozhe nodded and replied. When he heard Lu Yuan's words, D. Tion was a little surprised. So this person is also Lu Yuan's subordinate? Since that's the case, the human woman behind him should also be this kid's subordinate, right? This kid's subordinates aren't weak. Follow me. D. Tion retracted the surprise in his eyes and nodded at Yin Xiaozhe. D. Tion led the way, and Yin Xiaozhe followed closely behind. Lu Yuan withdrew his gaze and looked at the Sky Azure Bull Python and Shao Wu not far away. When he met their concerned gazes, he smiled and said, Don't worry, the Titan giant ape is fine. It's in my sea of consciousness right now. Sea of consciousness? Shao Wu was a little confused. Shouldn't a soul beast spirit be hidden in a soul ring? Why would it be in his sea of consciousness? Yes. Wait for me. I'll go in and take a look. Lu Yuan closed his eyes as he spoke, and his spiritual power entered his sea of consciousness. Under the white sky, there was a blue-gold ocean. What was different from the past was that there was only a lone island on the blue-gold ocean, but now there was an additional beach. After the sacrifice of the Titan giant ape, Lu Yuan had obtained 100,000-year soul ring and become a soul king. His spiritual power had also increased by quite a bit, and his sea of consciousness had also changed slightly. The area had expanded a lot, more than twice its original size. This meant that Lu Yuan's spiritual power had improved greatly. The original lone island was still in the core area of the entire sea of consciousness, and the god-slaying spear was stuck right above it. In the vast white sky, the clear air divine seed emitted a white light. A red sun hung in the sky, emitting light and heat. This red sun was the power of the polychoria. Ever since his polychoria had advanced to the second step and obtained the immeasurable light skill, the power of his polychoria had begun to manifest in his sea of knowledge. The spirit of the golden dragon was still swimming on the surface of the sea, and the white ball of the 10,000-year man-faced demon spider soulbone was still floating on the surface of the sea. Lu Yuan's gaze swept around, and he immediately saw the Titan giant ape on the beach. It was leaning against a coconut tree, scratching its head and looking at the world around it with a blank expression. Lu Yuan's figure moved slightly, and he walked directly onto the golden beach. Titan giant ape, Lu Yuan said softly. Hearing this, the Titan giant ape turned its head and saw Lu Yuan walking over. Immediately, a trace of excitement flashed across its eyes. It immediately moved its legs and roared loudly. Its arms hammered its chest, and there was a trace of surprise in its roar. All right, stop roaring. Seeing the Titan giant ape's excited appearance, Lu Yuan waved his hand and said, Now that your soul has been modified by the clear air divine seed, you should be able to speak freely, right? Yes, my lord. The Titan giant ape's rough voice sounded. Then you should talk more in the future. Don't roar all the time. I don't understand what you're saying, Lu Yuan said. Yes, my lord, I understand. The Titan giant ape scratched its head with a silly look on its face. Then come with me now. The Sky Azure Bull Python and Shao Wu are waiting to see you. With the protection of the clear air divine seed, you can leave your body for a short period of time to communicate with them. Looking at the degree of solidification of the Titan giant ape's soul and sensing the aura of the clear Qi God power on its body, Lu Yuan knew that it must have been cleansed by the power of the clear Qi God seed the moment it entered. With the protection of the clear air divine seed, it would be fine as long as it didn't leave his body for more than 2 hours a day. This was a good opportunity for it to meet the sky azure bull python and Xiao Wu so that they wouldn't have to constantly worry about the Titan giant ape. Really, my lord? After hearing Lu Yuan's words, the Titan giant ape's eyes were filled with ecstasy. Really? Come with me, and don't resist. Lu Yuan's spiritual power rippled as he spoke, and he swept the Titan giant ape's soul out of his sea of consciousness. In the outside world, Lu Yuan abruptly opened his eyes, and his polychoria flashed. Dazzling white light enveloped the Titan giant ape, and he appeared before Xiao Wu and the sky azure bull python. Ming, the sky azure bull python, and Xiao Wu's voices rang out in unison. The Titan giant ape was also very happy to see the two of them, and it immediately called out, "Big brother, big sister Xiao Wu. Now that the Titan giant ape has come out, you two can talk among yourselves. The Titan giant ape can leave my body for no more than 2 hours a day, and I'll be staying in the Great Stardow Forest for an entire year, so you two will have plenty of opportunities to meet," Lu Yuan said. "Yes, my lord," the sky azure bull python replied. "All right, then you two could talk here. Now, let's talk over there," Lu Yuan said to Gu Yuna. "All right." Gu Yuna nodded before following Lu Yuan to the side. Lu Yuan, how can a Titan giant ape's soul be so condensed? This isn't something that a 100,000-year-old soul beast should possess. A hint of confusion appeared in Gu Yuna's eyes as she looked at Lu Yuan. "That's because I have a divine seed in my sea of consciousness. The Titan giant ape's soul has been modified by the divine seed's power, and it has become a lot more condensed." Lu Yuan didn't hide anything from Gu Yuna. After all, Gu Yuna was now one of his own. Divine seed? Oh, that's the strange divine power I sense from your body. What kind of divine seed is that? Gu Yuna asked with a perplexed look in her eyes. What divine seed? A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face as he replied. This is the clear air divine seed, and it contains the power of laws. If I can attain godhood from this divine seed, then I'll become a new god of laws. When that time comes, I won't even have to fear the 5 godly monarchs. God of laws? A hint of surprise appeared in Gu Yuna's voice. That's right. The god of laws is an existence that transcends even the dragon god. It's the most paramount being in this universe, and it controls all things. Lu Yuan replied in an indifferent voice. Chapter 447. The god of laws has the power to control all laws. Gu Yuna's eyes lit up with elation as she stared intently at Lu Yuan with her purple eyes. What's wrong, Nar? Why are you looking at me like that? Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile at the sight of Gu Yuna's unwavering gaze. Lu Yuan, I knew I was right. You really are the hope of our soul beast race. A serious look appeared in Gu Yuna's purple eyes. This was the power of laws, a god of laws that reigned above the dragon god. Only such a being could defeat the 5 godly monarchs and lead the soul beast race to a new height. Otherwise, even if she had fused with the golden dragon king to become the dragon god again, there was no way that she would have been able to defeat the 5 godly monarchs. Otherwise, the dragon god wouldn't have been defeated. In the end, she hadn't placed her bet on the wrong person. It was no wonder that this man had always been so confident, because he had always been confident. After becoming a god, he had the confidence to be fearless. It was no wonder that he only hesitated slightly when he agreed to help her. Now that she thought about it, perhaps he was afraid of trouble and didn't want to get involved in it. However, he still chose to share the burden with her. Gu Yuna had interacted with Lu Yuan for quite some time, so she had a better understanding of his personality. Lu Yuan was someone who was afraid of trouble. If it weren't for her and Wang Qiu'er, it wouldn't have been so easy for Lu Yuan to side with the soul beasts. However, he had already agreed to help her, so the soul beast race's future shouldn't be too far away. A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face upon hearing Gu Yuna's words. If it weren't for the fact that he had a certain level of confidence, he wouldn't have accepted such a heavy responsibility so easily. After all, he was someone who never did things that he wasn't confident in. Lu Yuan smiled at the sight of Gu Yuna's flawless features. He gently stroked Gu Yuna's smooth cheek with a hint of affection in his eyes. A faint blush appeared on Gu Yuna's face, but she didn't stop him. Instead, there was a hint of joy in her heart. "That's right, Na, where's Chiao? Why don't I see her?" Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something, and his hand that was caressing Gu Yuna's face paused. "Chiao, she should have gone out to play. That little fellow is very active." After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Gu Yuna was slightly stunned, then quickly reacted and said softly, "That's true. It's like a little tyrant in the great Douluo forest. No soul beast dares to provoke it." Lu Yuan laughed softly. Wang Qiu was the emperor beast, the three-eyed golden lion. She carried the destiny of the entire great Douluo forest with her. If she wanted to kill a soul beast, that soul beast had no choice but to flee. The dignity of the emperor beast was not to be offended. "You want to see it?" Gu Yuna asked softly. I really want to see this little one. She's my only sister," Lu Yuan said with a smile. "All right, I'll send someone to look for it." Gu Yuna laughed softly. After that, she turned her gaze, and her red lips parted slightly. Her voice carried a tinge of dignity. "Bai Ji, master." After hearing Gu Yuna's voice, Bai Ji hurriedly walked forward. "Send someone to look for the emperor beast. Tell them that its brother wants to see it." Gu Yuna said, "Yes, master. I'll do it right away." Bai Ji nodded, then immediately turned and left. As he looked at Gu Yuna, who was exuding an indescribable dignity, Lu Yuan couldn't help but nod. This was Gu Yuna's true appearance. High and mighty, unparalleled. This was the true Silver Dragon King, Gu Yuna. In front of him, she wasn't the Silver Dragon King. She was only his Na. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Gu Yuna turned her head and looked at Lu Yuan's slightly strange eyes. She couldn't help but ask, "It's nothing. I just think that our Na is really dignified. It's really likable." Lu Yuan chuckled and said. Hearing this, Gu Yuna glanced at him indifferently, but the smile on her face couldn't be stopped. "Done?" Looking at Xiao Wu standing in front of him, Lu Yuan asked faintly. "Yes, done." Xiao Wu nodded charmingly. She looked at Gu Yuna with a slightly evasive gaze. She must still be a little afraid in her heart. "You don't have to be afraid of Na. She won't eat you." Looking at Xiao Wu's timid look, Lu Yuan was a little amused. Once upon a time, this little rabbit was quite lawless. He didn't expect her to be so afraid of Gu Yuna. However, thinking about it from another perspective, Gu Yuna was the high and mighty Silver Dragon King, the supreme ruler of all soul beasts. Aside from herself, she always had an indescribable sense of dignity around her. Coupled with the natural suppression of her bloodline, it was normal for Xiao Wu to be afraid of her. However, what Lu Yuan didn't know was that Xiao Wu was afraid of Gu Yuna because Gu Yuna had almost killed Xiao Wu for Lu Yuan. This was the main reason why Xiao Wu was afraid of Gu Yuna. "Oh." Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, Xiao Wu gave an affirmative response. However, there was still a hint of fear in her eyes toward Gu Yuna. "Since you've come to an agreement, then let the Titan giant ape come back. It's not good for its soul to stay outside for too long," Lu Yuan said. "Yes, yes." Xiao Wu nodded and said to the Titan giant ape, "Ming, come back." Hearing Xiao Wu's call, the Titan giant ape scratched its head. Then, its body suddenly shrank, and it disappeared into Lu Yuan's glabella as a streak of light. Lu Yuan rubbed his glabella and looked at Xiao Wu in front of him. "Since you've come to an agreement with the Titan giant ape, then you should have a good understanding of its current situation. You don't have to worry that I'll mistreat it if it follows me. I can promise you that if I become a god in the future, I'll give it a godly position. I won't mistreat anyone who follows me." Lu Yuan's voice wasn't very loud, but it was extremely serious and resolute. Everyone present couldn't help but nod in approval. Ma Xiaotao looked at Lu Yuan with a strange light in her eyes. Only a master like this was worthy of being followed. All right, that's all I have to say. Let's call it a day. Lu Yuan stood up and clapped his hands. He looked at Xiao Wu and rubbed her head with a smile. During this year, I'll be bringing the Titan giant ape to meet you frequently. You, in the sky, azure bull python, don't have to worry. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave with Nak. Yes, I know. Xiao Wu nodded, looking very obedient. After learning about Lu Yuan's identity, Xiao Wu was now abnormally obedient in front of him. She didn't dare to throw a tantrum for no reason. After all, Lu Yuan was a noble golden dragon in human form. As a soft-boned rabbit, Xiao Wu had an instinctive sense of reverence toward such a high-level dragon bloodline. Chapter 448. Lu Yuan was amused as he looked at Xiao Wu, who was acting like an obedient rabbit. It seemed like this lively rabbit had been frightened quite a bit. She was actually so obedient now. This was really interesting. After patting Xiao Wu on the head, Lu Yuan took Gu Yun's hand and left. Yes, he had to go back and set up his bed. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. Brother, a crisp voice rang out. Lu Yuan was originally sitting cross-legged, but he was suddenly pushed to the ground. A beautiful soul beast that looked like a lion was on top of him. She stuck out her tongue and gently licked Lu Yuan's cheek. Zhou, you're messing around again. Lu Yuan revealed a warm smile as he looked at the three-eyed golden lion on top of him. Although his words were harsh, his tone was full of love. Brother, the three-eyed golden lion called out softly. She rubbed her head against Lu Yuan's face, and her golden fur rustled against his skin. Lu Yuan couldn't help but reach out and stroke the three-eyed golden lion's soft, golden fur. He felt so comfortable that he closed his eyes. Gu Yuna was not far from Lu Yuan. She was watching the intimate scene between the siblings. Her lips curled into a gentle smile. She had been with Lu Yuan for the past 5 days. It had been an ordinary life, but she was intoxicated. This warm feeling was not bad. If she could, she really wanted to spend the rest of her life with Lu Yuan. All right, get off of me. Look at me. I'm covered in dust. You little girl. Lu Yuan patted the three-eyed golden lion's head. He had been sitting there, but Wang Qiu had pushed him to the ground. His back was covered in dust. Moreover, he was wearing white clothes, so the dust on his clothes was very conspicuous. Oh, the three-eyed golden lion was a little reluctant as she rubbed her head against Lu Yuan's cheek again. She climbed off of Lu Yuan's body. Once the three-eyed golden lion came down, Lu Yuan stood up and used his soul force to sweep away the dust on his body. This was a move that he had learned from Gu Yuna, and it was very effective. It was just that his control of soul force was a little high, but it wasn't too difficult for Lu Yuan right now. With the dust removed, Lu Yuan felt much better. Looking at the three-eyed golden lion in front of him, Lu Yuan bent down slightly and gently rubbed her head. As for the three-eyed golden lion, all 3 of its eyes were slightly closed as it enjoyed Lu Yuan's closeness. Xiao Wu, who was chatting with the sky, azure bull python, and titan giant ape, had a trace of loneliness and a hint of envy in her eyes when she saw how close the siblings were. In the past, she had also been this close to Tang San. Unfortunately, they had become enemies now. Tang San hated her for being an accomplice to Tang Hao's death, and Xiao Wu also resented Tang San. Not only did his father try to steal her soul ring and soul bone, but he also caused the titan giant ape to be severely injured and had to be sacrificed. The 2 of them could no longer be as close as before. Originally, she thought that she didn't care about it anymore. However, when she saw how close Lu Yuan and the three-eyed golden lion were today, she suddenly felt a little sad. As expected, this kind of closeness can only exist between soul beasts. Humans really aren't trustworthy. They're all greedy. Xiao Wu couldn't help but think to herself as she looked at Lu Yuan and Hua Xiaoing. Lu Yuan naturally didn't know what Xiao Wu was thinking. As he rubbed the three-eyed golden lion's head, his thoughts slowly drifted away. It's already been 5 days. The Martial Soul Palace must be in chaos. I wonder where Yin Xiaozhe is now. I hope he can hurry over. Lu Yuan thought to himself. Pontiff's palace. Bibidon sat high on the pontiff's throne. As she looked down at the weary Chihiro Snow, a look of sorrow flashed across her eyes. According to the news that Cher had brought back, something seemed to have happened to Obuchi. He was the disciple that she valued the most. After all, they had interacted for so many years, and he already held a very high position in her heart. Now that something had happened to him, Bibidon's heart was throbbing with pain. It was as if she had lost something important. However, looking at Chihiro Snow's appearance, she had never entered the Pope's palace before. Today, she actually took the initiative to enter the Pope's palace. Furthermore, she seemed to have lost her spirit. It seemed like something had happened to Obuchi, and it was a huge blow to her. However, she probably wouldn't be the one who found it the hardest to accept that something had happened to Obuchi. Chihiro Snow, what did you say? Something has happened to Junior? Hulina's beautiful eyes were red. With an incredulous look on her face, she stared at Chihiro Snow. Beside Hulina, Zhu Zhuqing's eyes were also red. Her pretty face was pale. She also stared at Chihiro Snow, hoping to get an answer from her. Facing the two women's questioning gazes, a trace of guilt flashed across Qian Rinchue's haggard and beautiful face. Her eyes were constantly dripping with tears as she sobbed and recounted the entire sequence of events. Suddenly, Hulina and Zhu Zhuqing took a few steps back at the same time. They held their hearts, and tears kept falling from the corners of their eyes. It's all my fault. It's all my fault for being stubborn. Obuchi clearly sensed the danger. If I had listened to him and retreated in time, nothing would have happened. He wouldn't have been seriously injured in order to save me. Chihiro Snow's face was filled with deep regret, and tears fell like rain. What's the use of saying this now? Hearing the reason for Lu Yuan's accident, Hulina immediately exploded. She went forward and grabbed Chihiro Snow's collar. Her jade-like face was filled with hatred. Why did you have to act on your own? Why didn't you get into trouble? If it wasn't for you, Junior Brother wouldn't have gotten into trouble at all. Junior Brother spoiled you too much. That's why you have such a willful and reckless character. If you had listened to him, how could this have happened? Hulina's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She was extremely angry. She pinched Chihiro Snow's collar until the veins on the back of her hand popped out. She pushed Qian Rinchue with all her might. Qian Rinchue, who had yet to recover from her injuries, was pushed to the ground. Chihiro Snow fell to the ground. Her originally neat hair was messed up. Her golden hair was stuck together with her tears. Her beautiful face was haggard. Chihiro Snow, who was originally as arrogant as an angel, looked particularly helpless at this moment. Looking at Chihiro Snow like this, Bibidon's red lips slightly opened. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Sure enough, after hearing the news of Lu Yuan's accident, Hulina, who was originally amiable and peaceful, exploded on the spot. In her anger, she directly pushed Chihiro Snow to the ground. To be honest, Bibidon had never seen Hulina like this. Sure enough, as long as it involved Lu Yuan, Hulina would completely change into a different fish. This girl really loved Obuchi too much. Chapter 449. However, from what Cher said, since the silver-haired lady could tear space apart to save Obuchi, she might be able to save Obuchi. Furthermore, with Obuchi's luck, he should be able to survive this crisis. Bibidon comforted himself in his heart. After all, Lu Yuan was very important to her, not only to Hulina and Zhu Zhuqing, but also to herself. It could be said that Lu Yuan's position in her heart was even higher than Chihiro Snow and Hulina. Apart from a certain useless coward, Lu Yuan was the most important person in Bibidon's heart right now. Therefore, how could she not be anxious when she heard that Lu Yuan was in such a life-threatening situation? However, she had been through a lot, and she was also the Pope. She was very strong-willed. Others could panic, but she couldn't. Furthermore, she could see the sorrowful looks on the girls' faces. If she panicked, the situation would be completely out of control. However, even if she didn't show it, it didn't mean that she wasn't angry. Evil Soul Masters, sooner or later, I'll kill all of you. Originally, She didn't feel anything towards evil soul masters. Hunting them down was just an old tradition of the martial soul palace. However, a strong killing intent surged from her heart this time. These evil soul masters had severely injured her precious disciple. If she didn't take revenge for this, she wouldn't be BB'd on. With Bibidon's personality, it was very difficult for her to approve of someone. However, once she approved of someone, she would treat that person wholeheartedly. It was obvious that Lu Yuan had already received Bibidon's approval. Those who dared to touch her people had to be prepared to suffer her revenge. Bibidon felt a headache as she looked at the 3 heartbroken girls below. However, she still had to persuade them. All right, nah, Obuchi might not be in trouble. Didn't she say that Obuchi was saved by a silver-haired lady in the end? Bibidon continued. Since that silver-haired lady can kill a transcendent Douluo in one move, she must be at least an ultimate Douluo. Since she took Obuchi away, she must be able to save Obuchi. You don't have to be too worried. Who knows? Maybe Obuchi will return soon. But teacher, Chihiro Snow said that Obuchi's bones were all broken, and his body was deformed. He's on his last breath. How can such serious injuries be treated so easily? Hulaina's eyes were filled with tears, her voice choked with sobs. And even if she was lucky enough to save Junior Brother, with such heavy injuries and broken meridians, Junior Brother's cultivation would definitely be crippled. Junior Brother is such a proud person. How could he accept such a blow? Junior Brother was originally a 1-in-a-million prodigy. Now that he's become a piece of trash who can't cultivate, he'll definitely suffer a fate worse than death. This, after hearing Hulina's words, Bibidon was stunned. Yes, Lu Yuan's bones were all broken, and his meridians were all broken. Even if he was saved with his talent, he would probably, after hearing Bibidon and Hulina's conversation, Zhu Zhuqing felt a chill in her heart. Lu Yuan was such a proud person. She was very clear that if he really became a piece of trash who couldn't cultivate, he would probably suffer a fate worse than death. The death of a prodigy was even more painful than being a piece of trash all the time. It's all your fault. Hulina stared at Chihiro Snow. If anything happens to Junior Brother, I won't let you off. And those evil soul masters, I'll kill them all while I'm still alive. Hulina's tone was laced with intense hatred. To her, Lu Yuan was her sky, and he was her life. Anyone who dared to hurt Lu Yuan would die a horrible death. Count me in. Zhu Zhuqing's cold voice rang out. Her usually cold face was filled with bone-chilling coldness, and her pitch-black eyes were filled with a murderous aura. Lu Yuan was also her one and only. She had already decided that if anything happened to Lu Yuan, she would fight evil soul masters to the death for the rest of her life. After destroying the evil soul masters, she would simply follow him. This was her vow. She would follow Lu Yuan for the rest of her life. Zhu Zhuqing was also someone who wouldn't regret her decision for the rest of her life. In the face of Hulina's accusations, Chihiro Snow collapsed to the ground helplessly. Her eyes were empty and lifeless. If Hulina could think of it, she could naturally think of it too. This was why she was so weak and helpless. Her heart was filled with deep regret. She regretted not listening to Lu Yuan. If she could do it all over again, no matter what Lu Yuan said, she would definitely do it. It had been 5 days. Chihiro Snow had struggled in this extreme pain and regret for 5 days. If not for the fact that she still had some hope that Lu Yuan was still alive, she wouldn't have been able to bear the condemnation in her heart. She would have chosen to follow Lu Yuan. In terms of strength, in terms of stubbornness, and in terms of love, Qianren Xue was not inferior to anyone. She was also deeply in love with Lu Yuan. Bibidon heaved a deep sigh as she looked at the 3 girls below. If there was no news of Lu Yuan, these 3 girls wouldn't be free. She couldn't help but praise Lu Yuan in her heart. This precious disciple of hers was indeed a blessed person. There were 3 such good girls who missed him and were even willing to give up their lives for him. Even if he died, he wouldn't have lived in vain with these 3 girls grieving for him. He wasn't like her. No one doted on her, and no one loved her. If she died, who would grieve for her? Chihiro Snow? This girl probably hates me to death, right? Hulina? Yes, this girl has deep feelings for me. If something happens to me, this girl will definitely be sad. The only one left is my precious disciple, who's already in trouble. Other than that, there's no one else. Thinking about it, I've really been a failure in this life. It's been quite painful. BB Dawn had a self-deprecating look on her face as she thought of this. Shaking her head, BB Dawn looked at the three girls below. She wanted to say something to persuade them, but she didn't know what to say. At this moment, a voice sounded from outside the hall. Reporting to your holiness, there's someone called Yin Xiaojia outside. He wishes to see you. The paladin knelt on the ground and reported respectfully. I won't see him. BB Dawn opened her red lips and rejected him directly. Didn't he know what time it was now? This place was still in a mess because of Obuchi's matter. How could she have the time to see someone she hadn't even heard of before? But your holiness, that person claims to be young Master Yuan, and he has the angel's badge in his hand. Once this was said, the entire Pope's palace fell silent. Chapter 450. But, your holiness, that person claims to be young Master Yuan's subordinate. He even has an angel's medallion. The entire pontiff's palace fell silent when the paladin knight spoke. What did you say? Hulina's voice immediately rang out. Her voice was very sharp as she stared at the paladin knight. There was a trace of undetectable anticipation in her voice. Zhu Zhuqing's teary eyes suddenly lit up. There was a trace of joy in her eyes. Lu Yuan's subordinate. Could it be that there was news from Lu Yuan? Obuchi. There's news from Obuchi. Chihiro Snow suddenly crawled up from the ground. Her hair was messy, and her golden hair was stained with dust. She ran in front of the paladin knight and grabbed his shoulders tightly. Do you think there's news from Obuchi? Chihiro Snow used a lot of strength. She did not restrain her strength in her agitated state. This caused the paladin knight to have a pained expression. This subordinate does not know, but the people outside have indeed said that he's young Master Yuan's subordinate. Furthermore, there's important news. There's news from Obuchi. Chihiro Snow released her hands and took a few steps back. Her haggard face was filled with both joy and sorrow. She was happy that there was finally news from Lu Yuan, but she was worried that it was bad news. Chihiro Snow's feelings were extremely complicated right now. Then why don't you hurry up and invite him in? BB Dawn said as he looked at the kneeling paladin knight. Yes, your holiness. The paladin knight bowed and left the pontiff's palace. Not long after, Yin Xiaojia walked into the pontiff's palace. Ever since Lu Yuan had sent him to deliver a letter to the pontiff's palace, Yin Xiaojia had traveled day and night. He had finally arrived at Martial Spirit City within 5 days. He had always been an extremely responsible person. He could be said to be meticulous. Since Lu Yuan had given him a mission, he naturally had to do his best to complete it properly. It had to be said that Yin Xiaojia had delivered the letter quickly. He had really come at the right time. It just so happened that Hulina and Zhu Zhuqing had just returned to the Martial Spirit Palace. They had also just received news of Lu Yuan's accident. They did not have the time to do anything irrational. Otherwise, who knew what would happen if this dragged on for too long? It could only be said that Yin Xiaojia had come at the right time. Greetings, your holiness. Yin Xiaojia bowed to BB Dawn. You are Little Yuan's subordinate. Little Yuan has news for you? BB Dong asked. Yin Xiaojia. How is Junior brother now? Hulina's voice rang out just as Yin Xiaojia finished speaking. Qian Renxue and Zhu Zhuqing turned to look at Yin Xiaojia as soon as he said that. Yin Xiaojia could not help but sigh in his heart when he saw the 3 pairs of concerned eyes. His master was really quite popular with women. He did not need to think to know that these 3 were his mistresses. Including the one from the Great Stardow Forest, there were now 4 mistresses. Yin Xiaojia felt that it was very likely that they would have another relationship in the future. His master didn't seem like someone who could control his feelings so easily. Furthermore, even if his master could control his feelings, it did not mean that other girls would not be attracted to him. After all, his master's fairy-like appearance was enough to make an old man like him. who had lived for 60 to 70 years, sigh in amazement. Furthermore, those young ladies would definitely not be able to resist his master's charm. Yin Xiaozhe thought to himself, "Mistresses, my master is doing very well. Not only has he fully recovered from his injuries, but he has also become a soul king." Yin Xiaozhe said, "Ah, is that true?" The three of them opened their eyes wide at the same time. They were shocked. Not only had he fully recovered from his injuries in such a short period of time, but he had also become a soul king. It was a little unbelievable just thinking about it. It's true. My master is doing very well, and his strength has increased tremendously, Yin Xiaozhe said with a smile. After all, how could his strength not increase with the addition of 100,000-year Titan giant ape soul ring? Then why didn't he come back with you? Zhu Zhuqing asked. Well, it's not that my master doesn't want to come back. It's just that he can't. Yin Xiaozhe said. He can't come back? The three of them became nervous again. Did something happen again? That's not it. Someone doesn't want him to come back, so my master can't. Yin Xiaozhe said. After all, Gu Yuna wanted to keep Lu Yuan for a year. Who could take him away from Gu Yuna's hands? This was simply impossible. Someone doesn't want him to come back. Chihiro Snow muttered. She thought of Gu Yuna's figure that she had seen before. That aura that was as deep as the abyss made Chihiro Snow's heart palpitate. It was definitely an aura that was far superior to Sindoriu's. If she wasn't wrong, that woman was very likely a god. Perhaps she didn't want Obuchi to come back. Only a god had the ability to heal Obuchi, who was so severely injured in such a short period of time. But how did Obuchi get involved with such an existence? Oh, right. There are also letters that my master wrote personally. He asked me to give them to His Holiness the Pope and Mistress Chihiro Snow. Yin Xiaozhe waved his hand, and 2 letters appeared in his hands. Oh, Bibidon's interest was piqued. He gave the Douluo a look, and the Douluo hurriedly went down to retrieve the letters. As for the other letter, Qian Rinxue directly took it into her hands. His Holiness the Pope. The Douluo passed the letter to Bibidon. Bibidon reached out to receive it. He opened the envelope, took out the letter, and read it carefully. Beside him, Qian Rinxue also opened her own envelope, took out the letter, and read it carefully. Bulina was a little restless when she saw the 2 of them reading the letters at the same time. Why didn't this junior brother write to me? He only wrote to Chihiro Snow. He was so biased. Nah, Zhuqing, take a look. Obuchi wrote this letter to the 2 of you. He asked me to tell the 2 of you not to be anxious and not to find trouble with Chihiro Snow. Take good care of yourselves. He'll be back in a year. Especially you, Nana. Don't do anything irrational. Stay in a martial soul palace. Don't run around, and don't think about finding evil soul masters to take revenge for him. Work hard on your cultivation is the most important thing. Obuchi said that if you don't listen to him and your abilities don't improve, he'll hang you up and spank you when he comes back. Bibidon sneered as he said this. Obuchi really dares to say anything. However, he thought about it carefully. Perhaps this was the only way to make Nana behave. Chapter 451. Bulina blushed as she listened to Bibidon relay Lu Yuan's words to her. Her junior brother was still as blunt as ever. However, she didn't feel disgusted by his words at all. Instead, she felt a little happy. It was as if her junior brother was still by her side. Stinky junior brother, when you come back, seeing your sister's improvement will definitely surprise you. Hulaina softly snorted and a rare smile appeared on her face. It was great that her junior brother was fine. Also, Zhuqing, little Yuan asked you not to return to the Heavenly Star Academy for now. Stay in the Martial Spirit Hall and learn from the Ghost Law about the techniques of Agility System Soul Masters. When he comes back, he will also test your strength. If you don't improve, you'll end up like Nana. Bibidon had a weird look on his face as he spoke. Why does this Obuchi like to play this game? How can he think of hanging someone up and spanking them? Hearing this, Zhu Zhuqing's pretty face turned red, and her cheeks immediately turned red. She was not Hulaina. Her personality was shy and quiet. Hearing such words, her heart was extremely shy. However, She had the same thoughts as Hulina. It was great that Lu Yuan was fine. Here, take a look. There's one more thing at the end of this letter. I'm afraid you'll be angry if you read it. BB Don said as he passed the letter to the chrysanthemum daw. The chrysanthemum daw didn't look sideways as he walked down the stairs and passed the letter to Hulina. Hulina took the letter and read it carefully. Apart from what BB Don had just said, there were only a few things about the Dragon King Hall. He wanted BB Don to help him in secret. At the end of the letter, he wrote about Gu Yuna. What a stinky junior brother. He actually found a fourth person behind our backs. Hulina pouted her red lips and looked angry. She slapped the letter into Zhu Zhuqing's hand and sulked. Looking at Hulina's appearance, BB Don was a little amused. This girl looked angry, but in fact, she didn't care much. As long as Obuchi coaxed her with a few words, she would immediately return to normal. This girl was really under the control of Obuchi. No wonder that stinky junior brother never calls me Na-er. He already has a Na-er, Hulina said angrily. Shouldn't the title Na-er be hers? In the end, it was snatched away by another person. How could Hulina not be angry? Seeing Hulina's reaction, Bibidon's expression became a bit weird. So, you're not angry because your junior brother found a fourth woman, but because of this title? Why did this female disciple of his have such strange thoughts? BB Don was a little confused. Zhu Zhuqing took the letter that Hulina slapped in her hand and read it carefully. The expression on her face didn't change, but her eyes flickered. No wonder you insisted on not accepting Rong. It turns out that you already have a fourth woman. Gu Yuna, I want to see how beautiful this woman is. She can make you still can't help but be tempted by the three of us. But for the sake of this Gu Yuna saving you this time, I won't oppose your matter. But whether you can solve the other two depends on your ability. But looking at Hulina's appearance, I'm afraid it's easy to solve. Your problem is still Chihiro Snow. Zhu Zhuqing secretly said in her heart. On the side, Chihiro Snow, who was reading a letter alone, cried while reading. Lu Yuan's letter was full of concern for her, asking her not to blame herself and pay attention to take care of herself. This made Chihiro Snow couldn't help but feel moved. Lu Yuan's love, in the end, was still the most on her. Gu Yuna, this should be the silver-haired woman. You deliberately said so much in the letter, as if you were afraid that I wouldn't agree. It seems that you like her very much. But since you like it, then take it. From now on, no matter what you do, I won't care about you anymore. As long as you're happy, no matter what decision you make, I'll always support you. You're Shui, or will always listen to you. I used to be too arrogant and overbearing. Now I know that you're the most important in my heart. As long as you're still here, I don't care about anything. Chihiro Snow muttered to herself. She touched her chest tightly, feeling her beating heart, which was full of the most passionate love. Obuchi, come back quickly. Just when Chihiro Snow was thinking about Lu Yuan, Hulina's voice suddenly sounded beside her. Chihiro Snow, what did junior brother write in the letter to you? The current Hulina was no longer afraid of Chihiro Snow. Instead, she looked calm. So what if it was Chihiro Snow? Could he eat her? She, Hulina, was not afraid. Moreover, she hadn't settled the matter of junior brother's accident with Chihiro Snow. The current Hulina could be said to be quite calm, especially after knowing that Lu Yuan was fine. Her worries were dispelled, and her mood was particularly relaxed. However, there was one thing she had been brooding about. Her name had been stolen by someone else. Nothing, just some words. If you want to see it, you can take it. Chihiro Snow handed the letter to Hulina. After learning that Lu Yuan was fine, her mood slowly recovered. Seeing Hulina's slightly provocative look at the moment, Chihiro Snow's heart didn't fluctuate at all. She didn't care about this now. Hulina's provocation was provocation, and she was too lazy to care about it. She was the legal wife, and this was decided by Lu Yuan, so she disdained to quarrel with Hulina. Presumably, a tolerant and magnanimous her was what Obuchi wanted to see more. After all, she was the legal wife, and she couldn't be calculative about everything. Thinking like this, Chihiro Snow felt that she was too inferior before. If she had to fight for everything, it would seem that she was narrow-minded. If it weren't for Obuchi's good temper and doting on her, there would have been a conflict. Hey, I'm too lazy to read it. Looking at Chihiro Snow's appearance, Hulina had no interest in reading the letter. Hey, Chihiro Snow, Guyuna that junior brother mentioned, you should also know. Hulina said. And Chihiro Snow nodded. What's your opinion? Don't you agree? Hulina asked, with a trace of expectation on her face. Stinky junior brother loves Chihiro Snow the most. If she doesn't agree, then it will be fun. It won't be so easy for Guyuna to enter the door. But who told her to steal my name? Stinky junior brother hasn't called me Na or yet, but Guyuna took the lead. Chihiro Snow faintly glanced at Hulina, and a strange light flashed in his golden eyes. What does Hulina mean by asking this sentence? Chihiro Snow secretly thought in his heart. Chapter 452. Is this Hulina purely trying to test my attitude towards Guyuna? Or does she have other intentions in her heart? Chihiro Snow thought for a moment and got the answer after a while. If he didn't hear wrong, this Hulina seemed to be angry because Guyuna stole her Nar title. Thinking about it, she want me to disagree with the relationship between Obuchi and Guyuna so that Guyuna can't hear the door? Chihiro Snow suddenly thought of the answer, and at the same time sneered in his heart. Good smelly fox, you're jealous in your heart, but you don't want to be the bad guy in front of Obuchi, so you want to use me as the scapegoat, right? Unfortunately, you guessed wrong. I really don't care now. Do you think I'm still the same Chihiro Snow who only knows how to haggle over every little thing? You're underestimating me too much. I have no objection to this Guyuna, as long as Obuchi likes her. Looking at Hulina beside him, Chihiro Snow said calmly. After listening to Chihiro Snow's words, Hulina, Zhu Zhuqing, and even Bibi Don on the Pope's throne couldn't help but cast a surprised look. Is this really something that Chihiro Snow would say? You agree? Hulina looked at Chihiro Snow with some surprise. Didn't Smelly Junior Brother say before that Chihiro Snow was the most strict with him? Now he actually agreed to let Guyuna enter the door so easily? I agree, because this Guyuna saved Obuchi's life. If it weren't for her, we would never have seen Obuchi again, and Obuchi liked her very much, so I don't object. Chihiro Snow said lightly. Hearing this, Hulina choked. Yes, Chihiro Snow is right. This Guyuna saved Junior Brother's life. There's really no reason to object. Zhuqing, what do you think? Do you agree to let Guyuna in? Hulina turned to Zhu Zhuqing and asked. I agree. Not to mention that she saved Lu Yuan's life. As long as Lu Yuan likes her, I'll agree. Zhu Zhuqing's cold voice rang out. Don't tell me you don't agree. Zhu Zhuqing looked at Hulina in astonishment. This is what your most beloved junior brother wants to do. Do you dare to oppose? Of course I agree. Hulina immediately said when Zhu Zhuqing looked at her. She didn't want them to know that she was targeting Guyuna because of her name. Otherwise, if one of them leaked it and told junior brother, she would be in trouble. Then why are you still asking? Chihiro Snow stared at Hulina. I just think that Guyuna is a bit too much, Hulina said. Too much. Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing looked at each other with some doubts. They didn't understand what Hulina meant. Yes, she's too much. She actually wants to leave junior brother alone for a year. Doesn't this mean that we won't be able to see junior brother for a year? She is declaring war on us, Hulina said indignantly. This time, she was really angry. She couldn't see her beloved junior brother for a year. How was she supposed to live? She missed him so much that she couldn't even see him for a day. Hearing Hulina's words, Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing frowned at the same time. Indeed, it was a bit too much to leave Lu Yuan alone for a year. They couldn't stand not seeing Lu Yuan for a year. But what could they do? Lu Yuan didn't say where they were now in the letter, so even if they wanted to find Lu Yuan, they couldn't find him. Besides waiting for a year, what else could they do? Besides, with Guyuna's strength, Chihiro Snow didn't believe that anyone could take Lu Yuan away from her. It was almost impossible. Therefore, they still had to wait. You see, you also think that Guyuna is too much, right? Hulina said. Hearing that, Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing were silent. They indeed thought so in their hearts. However, Chihiro Snow was still Chihiro Snow after all. She thought for a moment and said, "Things have already come to this point. It's useless even if we insist. It's only a year. After a year, Obuchi will come back. Instead of saying this to us here, why don't you report it to your junior brother after a year? Isn't everything decided by him? What can we do even if we think about it? What's important is his thoughts, not ours. If he wants to protect Guyuna, what can we do to her? Moreover, Obuchi said very clearly in the letter that he owes her a lot. This year is his compensation. Don't make trouble now. And don't think that I don't know what you were thinking. You are secretly angry because Guyuna stole your title, but you don't dare to go against her alone, so you want to pull us together." Chihiro Snow's tone was flat. She knew how terrifying Guyuna was. Such an existence was simply unimaginable. Although she didn't know why Lu Yuan was related to her, now that Lu Yuan was with her, there was no need to care so much. As long as she didn't have any malice towards Lu Yuan, then let nature take its course. As for the meaning of Hulina's words, Chihiro Snow didn't consider it at all. This kind of thing was definitely the last thing Obuchi wanted to see. If they really did this, it would only make him angry for no reason. Instead of doing something meaningless, it was better to wait for Obuchi to come back and report it to him alone. The effect would be much better. It could be said that after this incident, Chihiro Snow's character had really changed a lot. She was becoming more and more like a woman. As for Hulina, she didn't have any malice. She was just a little jealous. Although she looked indignant, she didn't have the courage to do anything. Zhu Zhuqing had been quietly watching the two. She had a quiet personality and didn't like to fight. Although she was a little jealous, after all, she hadn't seen Lu Yuan for a year, so it was inevitable that she would miss him. However, she didn't have any resentment and wanted to go against him. After all, this wasn't in line with her character. At most, she would wait for Lu Yuan to come back and privately complain to Lu Yuan. When Hulina heard Chihiro Snow's words, she couldn't help but stiffen. Her face revealed a trace of embarrassment. It turned out that her thoughts were seen through by Chihiro Snow. This Chihiro Snow was really smart. Hulina didn't say anything. She lowered her head slightly and looked at her shoes. She suddenly realized that her shoes today were quite nice. That's all for now. We'll just follow what Obuchi wrote in the letter. Chihiro Snow folded the letter and put it into his soul tool. "We'll meet again in a year," Chihiro Snow said as he turned around and left the pontiff's palace. Lu Yuan had also told her in the letter that she had to complete her mission well and help take care of the Dragon King Palace. She had to do this well. She couldn't let Lu Yuan down. Chapter 453. After Chihiro Snow left, Hulina and Zhu Zhuqing naturally remained in the Martial Soul Palace. After all, Lu Yuan had instructed them to do so, and they were very obedient. After Yin Xiaozhe delivered the letter, he immediately rushed to the Dragon King Hall. Lu Yuan still had a letter to pass to Douluo. At the same time, he asked Yin Xiaozhe to take over the Dragon King Hall. After all, the Dragon King Hall and the Seven Treasures Glazed sect were working together. However, the sword Douluo of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect wasn't weak. Douluo wasn't a match for him. How could he control them if he wasn't strong enough? Yin Xiaozhe was different. He was a rank 97 transcendent Douluo, and his martial soul was the Radiant Phoenix. If they really fought, the sword Douluo wouldn't be his match. Only he could control the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. Of course, there was also Long Xiaoyao. According to the time, Long Xiaoyao and the fellows should be returning to the Dragon King Hall soon. When that time came, they might even meet Long Xiaoyao. Long Xiaoyao had followed Lu Yuan for so long, and had contributed a lot. Since he couldn't get a wife, it wasn't a bad idea to give him a son first. It was also a way for him to experience the existence of kinship. After all, Long Xiaoyao didn't experience any kinship in the original novel. This was one of the reasons why Lu Yuan made such arrangements. Under such circumstances, a year passed by quietly. Dragon roaming the great void. On the Lake of Life, Lu Yuan let out a low growl, and his figure suddenly changed. His figure disappeared, and a giant golden dragon appeared on the spot. This dragon was different from the so-called huge dragons on the Douluo continent. Its head was like a cow's, its horns were like a deer's, its eyes were like prawns, its ears were like elephants, its neck was like a snake, its scales were like fish, its claws were like a phoenix, its palms were like a tiger's. It had whiskers beside its mouth, and there were reverse scales below its throat. As it flew across the sky, it released a bright, divine aura. Its golden scales shone brightly, and its horns stood tall. There were 5 sharp dragon claws on each of its palms. After circling around in the sky, it landed. The huge dragon's figure flashed, and it returned to its original human form. Lu Yuan stepped on the surface of a lake of life with a big smile on his face. Dragon swimming in the great void. This is a self-created soul skill that I've been thinking about for a long time. I've been thinking about it since I went to the ruins of life. Now that I'm 14 years old, it's been almost 5 years. It really wasn't easy. Lu Yuan sighed softly and said, "This dragon swimming through the great void fuses my movement technique and powerful attack power into one, allowing me to transform into a divine dragon to fight my enemies. It can truly be considered the peak of my self-created soul skills." After spending 5 years, I finally have some results. Moreover, the feeling of transforming into a 5-clawed golden dragon is really different. I feel much more handsome than the golden dragon. If my bloodline evolves in the future, I hope I can change the form of my martial soul. This golden dragon martial soul doesn't look as comfortable as my Huaxia divine dragon. Lu Yuan muttered to himself. The dragon swimming through the great void was a self-created soul skill, so he could design it himself. However, it was very difficult to change the appearance of his martial soul. Perhaps the only opportunity was when his bloodline evolved. After all, his bloodline had already embarked on a unique path. Once it evolved, the mentality of his martial soul would change. It was very normal. Lu Yuan walked towards the shore with light footsteps. Gu Yina, Wang Qiu and the rest were waiting for him on the shore. Unknowingly, he had been in the Great Stardow Forest for almost a year. His soul power had already reached rank 57. During this year in the Great Stardow Forest, his soul power had increased by 2 ranks. It didn't seem very fast, but he hadn't cultivated his soul power much over the past year. He had mainly been polishing his original soul skills and studying the dragon swimming through the great void. After all, it wasn't always better to increase one's soul power as quickly as possible. First, one had to stabilize one's foundation and temper one's soul power so that one could control it more freely. Only then would one's future path be easier. He leaped up and landed on the shore, in front of Gu Yina and the rest. Gu Yina lifted her snow-white hand as she looked at Lu Yuan. She gently wiped away the water droplets that had stuck to Lu Yuan's forehead. Her actions were very gentle, and she looked like a gentle little wife. Lu Yuan grabbed Gu Yina's hand. His gaze was gentle, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. Even though he had only been with Gu Yina for the past year, Lu Yuan didn't feel bored at all. Instead, Gu Yina's gentleness and intelligence had unwittingly conquered his heart. It was very relaxing to be with Gu Yina. He was even a little intoxicated by this kind of life. However, there were still people waiting for him in the human world. There were still many things for him to deal with. He had to go back. Now a year's time is almost up, Lu Yuan said softly as he held Gu Yina's hand. Gu Yina's hand paused. Her face was calm, and no expression could be seen. However, there was a trace of grievance in her voice. "Do you not want to be with me that much? Do you count the time, every day?" "Of course not." Seeing Gu Yina like this, Lu Yuan gently hugged her and said, "Of course I want to be with you. It's just that there really are some things that I need to deal with. You know that I have a lot of responsibilities on my shoulders. I have to work hard right now." Seeing Lu Yuan's sincere expression, Gu Yina couldn't help but lower her eyes. She said softly, "And spend the last few days with me. Once you leave, I don't know when I'll be able to see you again." "Okay." Hearing the reluctance in Gu Yina's voice, Lu Yuan immediately nodded. In fact, Gu Yina wasn't the only one who was reluctant to part with him. He was also reluctant to part with Gu Yuna. Let's go and roast something to eat. Lu Yuan held Gu Yuna's hand and walked forward. Nah, what do you want to eat? Lu Yuan asked as they walked. I'm fine with anything. You could decide, Gu Yuna said. Okay, then let's roast a rabbit. Rabbit meat is delicious. Lu Yuan pondered for a moment before he said. For some reason, he liked rabbit meat very much ever since he came to the Douluo continent. He felt that it was very chewy, and it tasted very good. Okay, I'll listen to you. Gu Yuna said gently. Then what do you want to eat, Chiao-er? Lu Yuan asked with a smile as he looked at Wang Chiao-er, who was walking to his right. I'll eat whatever Big Brother makes. Wang Chiao-er's clear voice sounded. Good girl. Lu Yuan smiled as he patted her head. His voice was very gentle. Let's go. I think Sister Xiaodao has already prepared all the ingredients. This glutton can really eat. Xiao Wu's little rabbit can also eat a lot. Lu Yuan's voice sounded. Hearing this, Gu Yuna smiled. However, she felt that something was wrong. He seemed to want to roast a rabbit, but... Chapter 454. Beside the Lake of Life, there were 2 people and 1 beast standing quietly. The beast was naturally the sky azure bull python, while the 2 people were Ma Xiaotao and Xiao Wu. Normally, when Lu Yuan was inside with Gu Yuna and the others, Ma Xiaotao would be here with Xiao Wu and the others. Coincidentally, Ma Xiaotao and Xiao Wu had unexpectedly become good friends over the past year. Xiao Wu, who was originally a little estranged and even disgusted with humans because of Tang San, actually got along well with Ma Xiaotao. This surprised Lu Yuan for a moment. However, after thinking about it carefully, Ma Xiaotao was an impatient person. Her personality was carefree like a boy. Sometimes, she was very reckless. However, she had her own advantages. That was, she was kind and warm-hearted. Therefore, she was very easy to get along with. Xiao was also a little rude and unreasonable, and liked to cause trouble. Although she was a lot more obedient in front of Lu Yuan, her personality wasn't so easily changed. Their personalities were similar, so it wasn't strange for them to become friends. However, the 2 of them had almost turned the entire Great Star Dove Forest upside down over the past year. They caused trouble everywhere they went, and many of the more ferocious soul beasts were often beaten up by the 2 of them. This was especially true for a 50,000-year man-faced demon spider emperor, who had been caught and beaten by the 2 of them countless times. Strangely enough, Xiao Wu seemed to hate the man-faced demon spider a lot. Every time, she would get Ma Xiaotao to beat it half to death before letting it go. Then, she would find it again after 10 days and beat it up again. Many 100,000-year soul beasts couldn't bear to see it. Even though the man-faced demon spider was an evil killer, it was still a little shocking to see it being bullied like this. Even Di Tian was alarmed about the 2 of them. He even came to Lu Yuan to complain about them, saying that the 2 of them were always fooling around and messing up the Great Stardew Forest. After Lu Yuan appeared, he taught the 2 of them a lesson. Only then did they settle down. However, the 2 of them seemed a little off today. When Lu Yuan arrived, he saw Xiao Wu pouting, as if she was sulking. Ma Xiaotao stood at the side with an innocent look on her face. What's wrong, Sister Xiaodao? Did you make this little rabbit angry? Lu Yuan looked at Ma Xiaotao curiously and asked. It wasn't me who made her angry. It was you who made her angry, little brother. Ma Xiaotao said with a smile. I made her angry. Lu Yuan was a little puzzled, but when his gaze shifted to the 2 dead rabbits in Ma Xiaotao's hands, he instantly understood. It turned out that the little rabbit was angry because he wanted to eat the rabbit. But even if she was angry, she still had to eat this rabbit. Since they had already been killed, it would be a waste not to eat them. He was a thrifty person. Big Sister Xiaodao, you only caught 2 rabbits? Lu Yuan looked at Ma Xiaotao in confusion. With so many people, 2 rabbits weren't enough to eat. There's still a lot of fish. Ma Xiaotao waved her right hand. There was a big string of fish in it. It looked like there were more than a dozen of them. Okay, if that's the case, it's enough. Lu Yuan nodded and said, Then, little brother, let's make grilled fish first. I love grilled fish the most. Speaking of grilled fish, Ma Xiaotao's eyes lit up. No, let's make grilled rabbit first. When he said this, Xiaowu pouted even more. Looking at Lu Yuan's mischievous smile, Ma Xiaodao couldn't help but secretly shake her head. This little brother of hers really had some bad taste. After peeling, cleaning, marinating, and processing all the rabbits and fish, Lu Yuan started the fire and prepared to barbecue. To be honest, Lu Yuan was probably the first person who dared to start a fire and barbecue in the core area of the Great Stardew Forest. After lighting the fire, Lu Yuan started his own actions. Placing the processed rabbits on the simple grill, Lu Yuan started the barbecue. As he barbecued the meat, he brushed oil on the rabbits. Only this way would the rabbits be more tender. Not far away, Xiaowu was secretly watching Lu Yuan's actions. Her little face was pouting, and her little mouth was pouting. Her eyes were full of complaints about Lu Yuan's actions. "Little rabbit, what are you looking at over there? Come over here." Looking at the sulking Xiaowu, Lu Yuan called out. Hearing Lu Yuan's voice, Xiaowu walked over reluctantly. Her eyes were full of complaints. "Rabbits are so cute. Why do you want to eat rabbits?" "Yes, rabbits are so cute. Of course I want to eat rabbits. Sprinkle some chili and cumin. The sky azure bull python next door is craving for it," Lu Yuan said with a smile. Puffed. Ma Xiaohao immediately laughed out loud. Looking at Lu Yuan beside her, there was a trace of strangeness in her eyes. This little brother of hers is really naughty. He only knows how to tease people. Even Gu Yuna couldn't help but smile when she heard Lu Yuan's words, a faint smile appearing on her pretty face. The sky azure bull python. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Xiao Wu was even angrier. However, in front of Lu Yuan, she didn't dare to lose her temper. She sat to the side with a bitter expression and didn't say a word. "Little rabbit, are you angry?" Lu Yuan tilted his head and asked. Xiao Wu turned to look at Lu Yuan with eyes full of resentment. "Ah, so you're really angry." Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. "In this world, the weak are prey to the strong. We eat rabbits, and other soul beasts also eat them. Who knows how many rabbits are eaten every day? If you get angry every time someone eats a rabbit, then you'll never stop being angry. Furthermore, we only eat the lowest level rabbits. We didn't touch those rabbits that have developed intelligence. Only those with intelligence can be called true living beings. I won't touch those existences. That's because they're really killing. The rabbits we eat now are actually the same as the meat you eat in a human world. When you eat pork, do you feel bad?" Lu Yuan asked. "No." Xiao Wu shook her head. "That's right. That's why we don't feel bad when we eat rabbit meat." Lu Yuan chuckled as he spoke. This smile made Xiao Wu look at him with hidden bitterness. Of course, she knew that Lu Yuan's words made sense. However, she was also a rabbit. When Lu Yuan and the others ate rabbits, she felt a little strange. It smells so good. Under the effects of the flames, the rabbits on the grill were a beautiful golden color. Hot oil was continuously dripping down from the grill, and at the same time, a rich aroma was slowly wafting from the roasted rabbits. It does smell very good. "Little brother master, your cooking is getting better and better." Ma Xiaodao couldn't help but lick her lips. She was starting to feel like eating. Xiao Wu's nose also twitched. When she smelled this aroma, she couldn't help but gulp. It did indeed smell very good. Chapter 455. Half an hour later, everyone finally finished their meal. Lu Yuan found a clean place to lie down and bask in the sun. It was quite comfortable. Gu Yuna sat beside Lu Yuan and gently massaged his temples with her bare hands to relieve his fatigue. He had to admit that Gu Yuna was impeccable when it came to being a girlfriend. She was perfect. Lu Yuan took a deep breath as he felt the warmth from Gu Yuna's hands. Life like this was so comfortable. There are no fights or schemes in the depths of the Great Stardew Forest. It was rather relaxing to stay here, and he was starting to fall in love with this kind of life. Lu Yuan closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Another 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The next morning, the strange space under the lake of life. Lu Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. A year had passed, and he was going to leave today. He was a little reluctant to part with Gu Yuna as he looked at her beautiful face in his arms. Once he left the great Stardow forest, he didn't know when he would be able to see her again. It could very well be a year or two later. Lu Yuan's eyes narrowed as he carefully examined Gu Yuna. Over the past year, Lu Yuan hadn't taken the final step with Gu Yuna, even though he had slept with her. Gu Yuna's injuries hadn't healed yet, and he didn't want to touch her under such circumstances. However, he had seen most of what he needed to see. But no matter how many times he looked at her, Gu Yuna was still so stunningly beautiful, and he couldn't help but sigh. She was like Chihiro's snow, and they both had a mesmerizing charm. This charm was something that Hulina and Zhu Zhuqing lacked. Gu Yuna seemed to have sensed Lu Yuan's examination, and she gently opened her purple eyes. She looked at Lu Yuan with her clear, amethyst-like eyes, filled with deep affection. "You're awake?" Lu Yuan smiled and gently stroked Gu Yuna's jade-like cheek. "And you're leaving today, right?" Gu Yuna blinked her beautiful eyes and asked in a gentle voice. "Yes, I've been away for a year. I don't know how the Martial Soul Palace and Dragon King Palace are doing. It's time for me to go back and have a look," Lu Yuan said. "Is that so?" Gu Yuna was silent for a while before she snuggled closer into Lu Yuan's arms. Lu Yuan's left hand moved slightly and wrapped around Gu Yuna's waist. Gu Yuna's eyes flickered as she said softly, "It's the last day. Take me." "Have you recovered from your injuries?" Lu Yuan asked. "I recovered 2 months ago," Gu Yuna said softly. "Is that so?" Lu Yuan was silent for a moment, then asked, "So you've completely recovered your strength as a second-tier god?" At her peak, Gu Yuna's strength was comparable to a divine king, but that was only at her peak. Now that her injuries had healed, her strength had not fully recovered. It would take a long time for her to fully recover her strength. After all, her injuries were so serious, and she had endured for so many years. It was unrealistic for her to fully recover her strength in such a short time. However, it was not a problem for her to be comparable to a second-tier god. I've already recovered my strength as a second-tier god. Coupled with my powerful mental strength and the esoteric word you taught me, an ordinary first-tier god wouldn't be able to take me down, Gu Yuna said softly with a strong confidence in her voice. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled bitterly. His girlfriend was really too strong. The pressure was as great as a mountain. Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuna's shy and expectant eyes, then shook his head and said, "Next time, when my bloodline evolves, how about we give birth to a little dragon god?" Hearing this, Gu Yuna's eyes dimmed slightly and said, "All right then." Seeing Gu Yuna like this, how could Lu Yuan not know her disappointment? However, this was not a good idea for the time being. Zhu Zhuqing had arrived before Gu Yuna. If she knew that Gu Yuna had arrived before her, then no matter how good Zhu Zhuqing's temper was, she would inevitably have a knot in her heart. Moreover, if they really started now, with his strength, he would not be able to leave today. There was definitely not enough time. Therefore, it was better to leave it for later. Hugging Gu Yuna tightly, Lu Yuan rested his chin on Gu Yuna's forehead and comforted her. "Nah, I'll be leaving now." Beside the Lake of Life, Lu Yuan said as he gently held Gu Yuna's jade-like hand. Remember to take good care of yourself," Gu Yuna said as she gently fixed Lu Yuan's collar. "You too," Lu Yuan said softly as he gently brushed Gu Yuna's silver hair. "Joer, I'll be leaving first. I'll come and see you again if I have a chance." After saying goodbye to Gu Yuna, Lu Yuan bent down and gently rubbed the three-eyed golden lion's head with a smile on his face. "Brother," the three-eyed golden lion's clear voice rang out as she gently rubbed her head against Lu Yuan's palm. "You have to listen to your sister in the forest. Don't act like a little tyrant and throw your weight around. Especially don't be like a certain unscrupulous rabbit who only knows how to cause trouble all day long. When it's done, I have to clean up the mess." Lu Yuan said as he glanced at Xiao Wu, who was not too far away. When Xiao Wu saw this, she immediately shrank back. This little rabbit was a little afraid of Lu Yuan when he was serious. Chior will be obedient. The three-eyed golden lion nodded her little head and was unusually obedient. That's a good girl. After gently patting the three-eyed golden lion's head, Lu Yuan stood up and called out to Ma Xiaodao, who was not too far away. Let's go, Sister Xiaodao. As he spoke, he hugged Gu Yuna, who was beside him, and turned to leave. Xiao Wu, Sister Xiaodao will be leaving first. Ma Xiaodao smiled as she waved at Xiao Wu and followed behind Lu Yuan. The group watched as Lu Yuan and Xiao Wu's figures gradually disappeared. As she watched Lu Yuan's figure gradually fade away, the three-eyed golden lion's golden eyes blinked. A strange ripple flashed across her eyes, as if she had made a decision. Lu Yuan and Ma Xiaodao's speed was naturally not slow. It didn't take them long to leave the core area. After about an hour, the two of them reached the entrance to the Lake of Life. Suddenly, a loud roar rang out, and a dark golden bear that was more than 20 meters tall appeared in front of the two of them. It was very majestic, and even the Titan giant ape, the former king of the forest, was only a little brother in front of it. It had a pair of incomparably sharp, dark golden claws. When it extended its claws, they were at least 2 meters long. These claws were much more powerful than Lu Yuan's dark golden terror claws, which were only 2 feet long. Chapter 456. Lu Yuan immediately recognized this soul beast as one of the 10 great beasts, Bear Lord. This was a 400,000-year-old dark golden terror claw bear, and it was close to the limit of the soul transformation stage. Aside from Dition, it was the most powerful great beast in the Great Stardow Forest. Of course, it was currently guarding the gate between the core region and the hybrid region. This was originally the duty of the Sky Azure Bull Python, but Lu Yuan had assigned it to Bear Lord. Hey, Bear Lord, long time no see. Lu Yuan greeted Bear Lord with a smile. He had already repaid his debt to Long Xiaoyao by guarding this gate. Lu Yuan wasn't the type to be petty, and he wasn't the type to hold others accountable for their mistakes. On the contrary, Bear Lord was going to be the main force that was going to crush the Clear Sky sect in the future. So shouldn't he treat it with a better attitude? So if it's you. Bear Lord's massive body was bent over, and its massive head was slightly lowered. Its 2 bright yellow eyes were shining like lanterns. Are you preparing to return to the human world? Bear Lord spoke in a soft voice, but its voice was like muffled thunder that exploded beside Lu Yuan's ears. Yes, I'm returning to the human world to interact with humans, and my powers will improve faster. Lu Yuan casually replied. In any case, only Gu Yuna and Dition knew that he was a human. Aside from the two of them, the other savage beasts all thought that he was a golden dragon in human form. Soul beasts would become stronger when they came into contact with humans, and this was common knowledge to these savage beasts. Oh, Bear Lord nodded in response. How does it feel to be guarding the gate here? Lu Yuan purposely asked. Don't even mention it. Basically, no soul beast dare to come here, and I'm just a bear, so I'm very bored. I don't know which bastard suggested this to the master, but he actually sent me here to guard the gate. Someone of my status is actually doing the Sky Azure Bull Python's job. There was a hint of indignation in Bear Lord's voice, and he harbored deep resentment toward the person who had suggested this. Hearing that, Lu Yuan laughed inwardly. When Dition had Bear Lord guard the door, he had only said that it was Gu Yuna who had asked him to guard the door. He hadn't mentioned Lu Yuan's opinion, so Bear Lord had no idea that it was Lu Yuan who had asked him to guard the door. On the other hand, Bear Lord's attitude toward Lu Yuan was very good after learning of Lu Yuan's true identity. Golden dragons were one of the most powerful dragons, and only the silver dragons could compare to them. Gu Yuna and Lu Yuan's relationship was no secret. Bear Lord was foolish, Bear Lord, and he wouldn't do anything bad to Lu Yuan. Furthermore, Bear Lord wasn't just any foolish Bear Lord. He was also very smart. Oh, isn't it fun at all? Lu Yuan asked with a smile. It's a little fun. For example, not long ago, 390,000-year-old thousand catty ant emperors came here. They were very rude, and they tried to take over my territory. In the end, I killed one of them with 2 claws, and the other 2 fled. Those 3 stupid ants, they really think they're the boss now that the auras of the sky, azure bull python, and the titan giant ape have disappeared. They don't even take me seriously, do they? Do they really think that little python and that little monkey are worthy of being compared to me? Even the sky, azure bull python, and the titan giant ape don't dare to mess with those 3 stupid ants. Yet they dare to mess with me? If I don't teach them a lesson, they won't know what pain is. After I casually slapped one of them to death, the other 2 quickly fled. Here, this is a soul bone dropped by that stupid ant. It's even a torso bone. I don't need it. Take it. Bear Lord pulled out an earthy yellow torso bone as he spoke before tossing it to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan hurriedly caught it. This torso bone was quite complete, and it was very old as well. It was over 90,000 years old, and it wasn't far away from reaching 100,000 years of age. As such, its value was most likely not inferior to that of the 100,000-year-old blue-silver emperor right leg bone. After all, even though the right leg bone was a 100,000-year soul bone, it was the least valuable of the 6 soul bones, while the torso bone in front of him was the most valuable of the 6 soul bones. Furthermore, it was more than 90,000 years old, close to 100,000 years old soul bone, and it was in a relatively complete state. In terms of value, it really wasn't inferior to that of the blue-silver emperor right leg bone. Lu Yuan naturally wasn't going to turn down a treasure like this. Thank you, Bear Lord. Lu Yuan put away the 1,000 catty ant emperor's torso bone. Regardless of whether he gave it to Hu Laina or Zhu Zhuqing, it would be very suitable. After all, torso bones weren't as clearly categorized as the 4 limbs, nor were they as clearly categorized as strength type and agility type soul bones. Torso bones were basically suitable for all soul masters. Just like skulls, as long as it was a skull, it would increase one's spiritual power. The only difference was that different skulls had different effects. Generally speaking, every soul master could absorb any piece of skull they wanted. It was the same for torso bones. As long as it was a torso bone, it would definitely increase one's constitution and defensive power. This was very effective for both Hu Lina and Zhu Zhuqing. Furthermore, this torso bone was over 90,000 years old, and it was close to 100,000 years old. Even if it wasn't suitable, it was still much stronger than ordinary 10,000-year-old torso bones. There's no need for that. It's useless to me, but it might be useful to you. You just have to remember to put in a good word for me in front of the master. Get me out of here as soon as possible. I've had enough of guarding this shitty place, the Bear Lord said. All right, I'll talk to Nar if I get the chance. Lu Yuan smiled and replied. Since the Bear Lord had given him a treasure like the 1,000-kilogram Ant Emperor's torso bone, it wasn't impossible for him to put in a good word for it. He could transfer it away after the matter with the Clear Sky sect was over. However, Lu Yuan thought about the Clear Sky sect, and an idea popped into his head. Bear Lord, you have to guard this door well. I've heard that there's a sect called the Clear Sky sect in the human world. They've always wanted to come to the Great Star Doe Forest to hunt 100,000-year soul beasts. They have a few titled Douluo, so you have to be careful. Don't let them barge into the core region. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have a good time. You have to know that there's a 100,000-year soft-bone rabbit in the core region. If she's accidentally killed, you'll be held responsible, Lu Yuan said. Don't worry. With me guarding this door, it'll be fine. When those people from the Clear Sky sect come, I'll be able to kill them one by one. The Bear Lord patted his chest and spoke confidently. Chapter 457. Don't be careless. The Clear Sky sect has 6 titled Douluo, and one of them is a rank 96 transcendent Douluo. Furthermore, the Clear Sky sect's Clear Sky Hammer Martial Soul is quite powerful. Don't underestimate them. If something really happens, you'll be skinned alive. Even if we don't talk about that 100,000-year little rabbit, the Emperor Beast, the 3-eyed golden lion, is in the core region of the Great Star Doe Forest. Nothing can happen to it. You should know how important it is. Lu Yuan said. The Bear Lord's huge paw paused when he heard this. Lu Yuan's words had shocked him. That's right. If the little rabbit dies, it doesn't matter much. However, if something happens to the Emperor Beast, it'll be a big deal. Even if I'm skinned alive, it'll be considered a light punishment. After all, the Emperor Beast was the destiny of the entire Great Star Do Forest. If something went wrong, even Tion would kill him, let alone his master. The Bear Lord couldn't help but shiver as he thought until here. Lu Yuan was right. He really couldn't underestimate his opponent. It was better to hide and play to his old skills. If he saw a human titled Douluo, he would sneakily attack them as long as he didn't know them. After all, there weren't any good human soul masters. The Bear Lord thought to himself. Lu Yuan smiled as he watched the Bear Lord fall into deep thought. With Lu Yuan's reminder, the Bear Lord would be much more serious about guarding the gate in the future. If he saw a large group of soul cultivators coming to the gate, the Bear Lord would definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. When that happened, the Clear Sky sect would be unprepared. They would be attacked from behind by the Bear Lord's dark golden terror claws. Just thinking about that scene was a little exciting. Clear Sky sect, I hope you like this gift that I prepared. After all, I've specially reminded the Bear Lord about this gift. I'm afraid that he'll forget. However, it's fine as long as you like it when you receive it. There's no need to thank me. After all, I'm someone who doesn't leave my name when I do good deeds. The corner of Lu Yuan's mouth curled into a smile. Bear Lord, you should know what to do now, right? Lu Yuan said with a smile. I understand. As long as it's a human soul master that I don't recognize, I'll kill them all. Thanks for the reminder, kid. Since you know what to do, I'm relieved. As for your transfer, I'll talk to Na about it the next time I come. For now, you'd better stay in your post. Your responsibilities are not light. Lu Yuan clapped his hands and said, That's all for now. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. See you next time. With that, Lu Yuan walked toward the mixed zone. Ma Xiaodao quietly followed behind him. It was a long journey. 5 days had passed since Lu Yuan and Yin Xiaozhe left the Great Star Do Forest. During these 5 days, Lu Yuan and Yin Xiaozhe had been hurrying along. However, the Great Star Do Forest was really quite far from the Martial Soul Palace. They weren't like Yin Xiaozhe, who traveled day and night. Therefore, they still hadn't reached the city after 5 days. In midair, Ma Xiaodao condensed a pair of flaming wings behind her back and asked Lu Yuan, Little brother, how far are we from the Martial Soul Palace? Not far. We'll be there soon. Lu Yuan said softly as he flapped his wings. You said the same thing 2 days ago. In the end, we've traveled for 2 more days, but there's still no trace of the Martial Soul Palace. Ma Xiaodao said with a hint of complaint. So you're going to say that you're tired from flying and want to rest, eat something good, and take a leisurely stroll around before continuing? Lu Yuan asked. Thinking about Ma Xiaodao's personality, Lu Yuan felt a little helpless. They were hurrying along, not sightseeing. This woman would always say that she was going to eat, but after eating, she would always take a stroll around before continuing. If she hadn't delayed them, they would have been able to travel even further. Hee, little brother, you're really smart. As expected of the Lord. I'm really hungry now. Why don't we go down and eat something first? I promise I won't wander around this time. Ma Xiaodao said with a serious face. Are you really hungry? Lu Yuan asked. I'm hungry. My stomach is flat from hunger. If you don't believe me, you can see for yourself. Ma Xiaodao touched her stomach and said with an aggrieved expression. If you're hungry, then eat some dry food. I have some of my star ring. If you want to eat, I'll get it for you. Lu Yuan said indifferently without looking at Ma Xiaodao's exaggerated and aggrieved expression. But the dry food is too dry. I don't want to eat it. Ma Xiaodao said. If you don't want to eat, then you can starve. Lu Yuan said indifferently. He flapped his golden dragon wings and sped up again. Hey, little brother master, fly slower. Seeing that Lu Yuan's figure had flown far away, Ma Xiaodao flapped her fiery red phoenix wings and chased after him. She muttered, You heartless, stinky little brother. You're not in a hurry. Why are you in such a hurry? However, what she didn't know was that Lu Yuan hadn't seen Chihiro Snow and the others for a year. He missed them dearly. It could be said that he was anxious to return home. Under such circumstances, how could he not be in a hurry? He didn't travel day and night. This was already considered for Ma Xiaotao's sake. If he was alone, he would use the night to hurry along. In the sky, two streams of light, one gold and one red, flashed past and flew quickly in the direction of the Martial Soul Palace. 2 days later, outside the Martial Soul City, looking at the tall city, Lu Yuan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. After 7 days of trekking, he finally returned to the Martial Soul City. Is this the Martial Soul City? It looks spectacular. Beside Lu Yuan, Ma Xiaodao looked at the tall Martial Soul City and couldn't help but exclaim, "Of course, this is the capital city of the Martial Soul Palace. It's the most prosperous capital city in the entire continent. How can it not be spectacular?" Lu Yuan said indifferently, "Well, it looks pretty good from the outside. I wonder how it's like inside?" Ma Xiaodao said, "Let's go in and take a look." Lu Yuan said and walked into the Martial Soul City. "Little brother, wait for me." Ma Xiaodao shouted and quickly chased after Lu Yuan. As soon as Lu Yuan entered the city, he was discovered by Bibidan's spies. Immediately, the news of Lu Yuan's return to the city was sent to the Pope's palace. Of course, this was also because Lu Yuan didn't hide his figure. Otherwise, it would be difficult for these spies to discover his whereabouts. "Little brother, someone is watching us." With Ma Xiaotao's strength, she naturally discovered that someone was secretly watching them. "They are teacher's men. I think the news of my return has already reached teacher. Let's go, Sister Xiaodao. Come with me to the Pope's palace to meet teacher." Lu Yuan said softly. Chapter 458. Within the Pontiff Palace, Bibidan sat high up on the Pontiff's throne. Her lips were slightly curled up, and there was an unconcealable smile on her beautiful face. Just a moment ago, she had received news that her precious disciple had returned to Martial Soul City. Bibidan, who hadn't seen him for over a year, couldn't help but feel a trace of joy in her heart. Over a year has passed, and I wonder how Obuchi is doing. Has he become more handsome and mature? Bibidan thought to herself. Send someone to summon Chihiro Snow, Hulina, and Zhu Zhuqing. Bibidan said softly as she sat on the Pontiff's throne. A year had already passed, and these three girls had probably missed their precious disciple to the point that they couldn't stop thinking about her. Even Qian Renxue, who had been hiding in Heaven Do, took the time to rush back to the Martial Spirit Hall when the 1-year period was about to end. Wasn't it just to see Lu Yuan? Now that Lu Yuan had returned, it was time for the three of them to see him. "Yes, Your Holiness." Zhu Do nodded gently, then went to instruct the paladins. Moments later, Chihiro Snow, Hulina, and Zhu Zhuqing walked into the Pontiff Palace one after another. "Teacher, why have you called us here?" Hulina's voice sounded as soon as they entered the Pontiff Palace. Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing didn't say anything. Zhu Zhuqing was afraid of Bibidan, and she wasn't very close to him. Furthermore, she had a quiet and shy personality, so under normal circumstances, she wouldn't take the initiative to speak. Chihiro Snow looked at Bibidan calmly, and there was a hint of stubbornness in her eyes. She still had some resentment toward Bibidan in her heart. Even though Lu Yuan had helped her out in the past, the hatred that had been hidden in her heart for so many years couldn't be erased so easily. Therefore, it was unrealistic to expect her to greet Bibidan first. She was already giving Bibidan face by allowing him to enter the Pope's palace. Looking at the three women below, Bibidan's gaze swept over them and finally stopped on Hulina. He smiled and said, "I have good news for you." "What good news?" Hulina asked. "Could it be that there's news about Junior Brother?" Hulina's face was filled with anticipation. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow and Zhu Zhuqing couldn't help but look at Bibidan. "Yes, according to our scouts, Obuchi has already entered Martial Spirit City today. It won't be long before he returns to the Pontiff's palace," Bibidan said. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the three women burst out with a strong light at the same time, and a trace of joy couldn't help but surge onto their pretty faces. Teacher, are you serious? Junior brother is back. Hulina's eyes widened, and her pretty face was filled with a smile. It seemed that her whole person had become more energetic in an instant. It's true. He's rushing towards the pontiff's palace, BB Don said with a light smile. Is that so? That's great. Hulina murmured softly, her eyes slightly red. Stinky Junior brother, it's been a year, and you're finally back. Do you know how much I miss you? Obuchi is back. A ripple flashed across Chien Rinchue's watery golden eyes. Her gaze softened, and her eyes were filled with affection. You're finally back. Zhu Zhuqing's jade-like hand gently touched her chest, and her big eyes sparkled. After waiting for a year, he was finally back. Looking at the excited faces of the three women below, BB Don couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, his precious disciple's charm was great. At this moment, a palace guard suddenly ran into the main hall, knelt on one knee, and reported loudly, "Reporting to your holiness, young Master Yuan requests an audience." "Let him in," BB Don said softly. "Yes, your holiness." The palace guard responded and retreated. After a while, Lu Yuan, dressed in white, stepped into the main hall, and behind him was Ma Xiaotao, dressed in red. "Teacher, I'm back." Lu Yuan bowed to BB Don as soon as he entered the main hall. It's good that you're back." BB Don nodded gently with a smile on his face. Looking at the still handsome but mature precious disciple in front of him, BB Don secretly nodded. This disciple of his was really becoming more and more outstanding, and he couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. "Junior brother." Lu Yuan bowed, and just as he stood up, a fragrant wind suddenly blew over, and a soft and delicate body directly rushed into his embrace. Hulina's hands were tightly wrapped around Lu Yuan's neck, and her pair of white legs were tightly wrapped around Lu Yuan's body like an octopus. Her beautiful and flirtatious fox-like eyes were filled with tears. She stared blankly at Lu Yuan, and tears flowed down her cheeks. Senior sister. Looking at the lovely person in his embrace, Lu Yuan couldn't help but reach out his hands and tightly hug her waist, calling out softly, "Junior brother, senior sister missed you so much. After hearing that something happened to you, I was so worried about you. Fortunately, you finally came back safely." Hulina looked straight at Lu Yuan, and her eyes were filled with deep affection. "Senior sister, it's been hard on you this year." Looking at Hulina's tear-stained face, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh, and his tone carried a trace of gentleness. He could imagine that this year, Hulina definitely didn't feel good. After all, she was someone who would miss even if she left him for a moment. What's more, in this 1 year, Hulina must have missed him deeply. "It's not hard. As long as you come back safely, senior sister is satisfied. Junior brother, do you know? Seeing you today, senior sister is very happy." Hulina suddenly grinned. Her smile was very hearty, but when paired with her tear-stained face, there was an indescribable strangeness. Seeing this, Lu Yuan smiled. His left hand hugged Hulina's waist, and his right hand pulled out and used his sleeve to wipe away the tears on Hulina's face. Lu Yuan's movements were very gentle. Feeling the gentleness in Lu Yuan's hand, Hulina closed her eyes comfortably, and a look of enjoyment appeared on her face. After wiping away the tears, Hulina's bright and beautiful face was completely revealed, and she looked much more beautiful. Gently pinching Hulina's cheeks, Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Senior sister, come down first. Zhuqing and Cher are still watching." "Oh, I know." She pouted unwillingly. She hadn't hugged him enough. However, thinking that Zhuqing and Chihiro Snow hadn't seen Junior brother for a year, perhaps they were as anxious as she was. Therefore, Hulina reluctantly let go of Lu Yuan's arms. "Let them be close for now. Anyway, Junior brother must be mine tonight," Hulina secretly thought. Chapter 459. Good girl. Seeing Hulina get down from his body, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile. He rubbed Hulina's head. Sure enough, senior sister was still so obedient and well-behaved. He looked at Zhu Zhuqing, who was at the side. This girl was also looking at him with a pair of big eyes. She didn't even blink. Her pair of lively big eyes were sparkling. Zhuqing. Smiling at Zhu Zhuqing, Lu Yuan opened his arms. Suddenly, Zhu Zhuqing was like a little swallow returning to its nest. She directly entered Lu Yuan's arms. Gently stroking Zhu Zhuqing's beautiful black hair and feeling her delicate body trembling in his arms, Lu Yuan couldn't help but gently pat her back. His heart was full of love. This girl who had abandoned everything to follow him. Over the past year, she had probably been worried and scared a lot. Zhu Zhuqing greedily sucked on Lu Yuan's breath. It had been a year. She hadn't seen Lu Yuan for a year. Over the past year, her heart had been empty. Without Lu Yuan, it was as if her heart was missing a corner. That kind of empty feeling was really unbearable. However, at this moment, leaning in Lu Yuan's arms, Zhu Zhuqing only felt exceptionally satisfied. That kind of familiar hug that she hadn't felt in a long time calmed her originally fearful heart down. Her entire heart felt as if it had been filled with something and became full. Zhuqing, Lu Yuan called out softly. Lu Yuan, don't leave me again in the future. Don't make me worry again. This year has been so painful for me. Zhu Zhuqing's slightly cold voice rang out. Her voice carried a trace of fear. This year, she had really struggled in pain. She missed him, but she was also worried. Although Lu Yuan had sent a letter back, Zhu Zhuqing still couldn't help but worry when she hadn't seen Lu Yuan for a day. Lu Yuan was her everything now. Lu Yuan's every move could tug at her heartstrings. Hearing Zhu Zhuqing's soft words, Lu Yuan nodded and said in a gentle voice, "Don't worry, Zhuqing. I won't make you worry again in the future. I promise." "Okay." Zhu Zhuqing nodded and once again burrowed into Lu Yuan's arms, enjoying that rare peace of mind. A moment later, Zhu Zhuqing left Lu Yuan's arms. Her eyes glanced at Chihiro Snow, and her red lips slightly opened. Her voice was calm. "Go." "Okay." Gently stroking Zhu Zhuqing's long hair, Lu Yuan revealed a trace of smile. Sure enough, Zhu Zhuqing was still sensible and reasonable. In this aspect, she was better than Hulina. If it had been Hulina just now, she would have definitely taken the opportunity to hug him for a longer time. This senior sister of his, when in front of him, would only think of being close to him. Basically, it was very difficult for her to care about others. Unless Lu Yuan reminded her, it would be very difficult for her to react. However, Lu Yuan didn't mind this. In fact, he was a little happy. This was a display of Hulina's love for him. "Share." Lu Yuan softly called out as he gently walked to Chihiro Snow. After not seeing each other for a year, Chihiro Snow had become a lot more haggard. Even her figure had become a lot thinner. Seeing this, Lu Yuan's heart secretly ached. In the past, Chihiro Snow was valiant, spirited, and not inferior to men. However, the current Chihiro Snow always had a trace of sadness between her eyebrows. There was often a trace of sadness in her eyes. When she looked at Lu Yuan, her eyes were filled with deep guilt. "Obuchi." Chihiro Snow's red lips slightly opened. Her pair of golden eyes stared closely at Lu Yuan, as if she was afraid that he would suddenly disappear again. "Share." Lu Yuan took 2 steps forward and gently pulled Chihiro Snow into his arms. He lowered his head slightly and looked at Chihiro Snow's slightly pale face. Lu Yuan couldn't help but feel pain in his heart. He reached out and stroked Chihiro Snow's cheek. His tone was filled with pity. "Share, you've lost a lot of weight." "Obuchi." Staring at Lu Yuan's pitiful eyes, Chihiro Snow's heart trembled. The tears that she had been holding back for a long time could no longer be controlled and instantly gushed out. Chihiro Snow lay on Lu Yuan's shoulder. The tears that flowed from her eyes completely wet Lu Yuan's white clothes. "Share." Lu Yuan sighed softly. "Obuchi, it's all my fault. It's all because of my stubbornness that you were seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to save me. If I had listened to you back then and retreated, nothing would have happened. It's all my fault for not listening to you. It's all my fault for acting rashly. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been in this situation, Chihiro Snow said loudly. Her tone was filled with deep regret and guilt. The fact that Lu Yuan was seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to save her had already become a knot in Chihiro Snow's heart. Share, don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault. Lu Yuan gently patted Chihiro Snow's back and said with a smile, if this isn't her fault, who else can it be? After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Hulina immediately became emotional. If she hadn't insisted on investigating, how would she have met that evil transcendent Douluo? How would you have been seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to save her? She can't shirk her responsibility for what happened to you. Senior sister. After hearing this, Lu Yuan furrowed his brow and glanced at Hulina. Did I say anything wrong? Seeing the harsh look in Lu Yuan's eyes, Hulina didn't back down. Junior brother, just spoil her. You've already spoiled her, but you're still spoiling her. This time, you were seriously injured and on the verge of death. What if there's a next time? Junior brother, even if you spoil her, there should be a limit, right? Have you ever thought about Zhu Qing and me? You were lucky this time, and you managed to survive. But if something really happens to you next time, what will Zhu Qing and I do? Even if you love Chihiro Snow the most, you should still consider us. Junior brother, you're too biased. Faced with Lu Yuan's harsh look, Hulina unleashed all the resentment that she had accumulated for a long time. She didn't back down as she stared at Lu Yuan. Her eyes were filled with stubbornness. Zhu Zhuqing's eyes flickered when she heard this. She had to admit that Hulina's words were exactly what she was thinking. It was just that she didn't have the courage to say it out loud. However, she didn't expect Hulina, who had always been submissive and obedient, to unleash all her resentment towards Chihiro Snow and Lu Yuan. When did she become so bold? Senior sister. Seeing the stubbornness in Hulina's eyes, Lu Yuan couldn't help but be a little stunned. After knowing Hulina for so long, this was the first time she had faced him so unyieldingly. It seemed like she had been suppressing her resentment for more than a day or two. It seemed like the incident that had happened to him was the fuse that caused her resentment to erupt. Chapter 460. Looking at Hulina's appearance, Lu Yuan couldn't help but secretly think, did he really spoil Chihiro Snow too much? Even Hulina, who had always been temperamental, burst out with such strong emotions this time. Zhu Qing, do you think so too? Lu Yuan looked at Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing was the most sensible. If even she said so, then maybe he really spoiled her too much. Facing Lu Yuan's eyes, Zhu Zhuqing hesitated, but in the end, she nodded affirmatively. Lu Yuan's preference for Chihiro Snow, as long as one was a person, they could feel it. It was completely different from how he treated her and Hulina. In fact, junior brother, you have already noticed it in your heart, but you are unwilling to admit it. At this moment, Hulina's voice faintly sounded. The things that Lu Yuan was doing now basically had the shadow of Chihiro Snow in it. Whether it was the establishment of the Dragon King Palace or the establishment of the Heavenly Star Academy, they all had the intention of helping Chihiro Snow. It was not a problem to say that Lu Yuan favored Chihiro Snow the most among his 4 girlfriends. Although he wanted to be impartial, after all, the human heart was made of flesh and could be swayed by feelings. When a pair of hands stretched out, the fingers had different lengths, let alone the human heart. It was undoubtedly difficult to be impartial to everyone. Because Lu Yuan had many girlfriends, he had always felt guilty towards Chihiro Snow in his heart. Under such circumstances, it was understandable that he spoiled her, tolerated her, and sometimes even indulged her. However, in the long run, such indulgence was not a good thing after all. Fortunately, the current Chihiro Snow was not the original Chihiro Snow. Senior sister, Lu Yuan opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Hulina. Junior brother, I can understand that you dote on Qianrenxue because you love her the most. However, please know your limits when you dote on her. Don't encourage her to become arrogant and unreasonable. I'm not angry because you dote on her, but because your doting on her has brought danger to yourself. I don't mind that your love for me is less than Chihiro's snow. I just hope that you can be safe, do you know? Junior brother. Hulina's beautiful eyes stared straight at Lu Yuan. Her eyes were incomparably sincere, and that rich love seemed to be able to melt Lu Yuan's whole body. Looking at Hulina's eyes, Lu Yuan's heart was slightly warmed. When it came to feelings for him, Hulina was the one who had the deepest feelings for him. Gently patting Chihiro Snow's back in his arms, Lu Yuan was slightly stunned. Hulina's words really woke him up, and at the same time, these words also woke Chihiro Snow up. Obuchi, Chihiro Snow said softly, lifting her head from Lu Yuan's shoulder. Her face was tear-stained, and her pair of beautiful eyes were still red and swollen. This made Chihiro Snow, who was originally full of heroic spirit, reveal a rare trace of weakness. Chair. Gently caressing Chihiro Snow's little face, Lu Yuan affectionately called out. Hulina's words are reasonable. In the past, I was too arrogant and too stubborn. Almost every time, you had to accommodate me. In the future, I won't. From now on, I will listen to everything you say. Your share will listen to everything you say. Chihiro Snow's eyes were hazy with tears, but her tone was unprecedentedly firm. She didn't ask for anything else. As long as this man was still by her side, that was enough. No matter whether he was a womanizer or not, as long as he liked, she would support him without hesitation behind his back. This was a most sincere thought in Chihiro Snow's heart right now. Only the heavens knew how she had spent the past year. Hulina and Zhu Zhuqing suffer a lot, but she suffered even more than they did, especially the guilt and condemnation in her heart, which almost made her collapse. If it wasn't for Lu Yuan's timely letter, Chihiro Snow would have been unable to hold on. From that moment on, she began to tell herself that in this life, other than Lu Yuan, other things were not important to her. What martial soul palace, the glory of the angel clan, they were all far inferior to the man in front of her. As long as he was by her side, as long as he loved her deeply, then she could give up everything. Share. Why had Lu Yuan seen Chihiro Snow like this? His heart had long been shocked beyond words, and following that, he was happy and moved. Chihiro Snow's change was all for him. Lu Yuan's heart moved slightly, and he hugged Chihiro Snow tightly in his arms. Little Yuan, Qian Renshue murmured softly. Her tone was low and carried a strong sense of longing and affection. Share, Lu Yuan called out softly. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he said, What do you think about the matter between me and Na? Lu Yuan's tone carried a trace of probing. After all, Chihiro Snow's change was too great, and it was too sudden. This made him feel a little uncomfortable, so he wanted to test him a little. Moreover, although Lu Yuan had already mentioned Gu Yuna's matter in the letter, Lu Yuan was still a little uncertain about Chihiro Snow's opinion. Nar, are you talking about Gu Yuna? Chihiro Snow asked. Yes, it's her. Share, what do you think? Lu Yuan asked. I have no opinion, as long as you like her. Moreover, she is very beautiful, and she is indeed worthy of you. Chihiro Snow said softly. Among Lu Yuan's women, she was the only one who had seen Gu Yuna. Chihiro Snow also knew about Gu Yuna's amazing appearance. In terms of the exquisite appearance, she was not inferior to her. On the contrary, the mysterious and noble temperament on her body was even above her. Although she was unwilling to admit it in her heart, the reality was the reality. The current Gu Yuna was slightly more charming than her. Perhaps in the future, when she grew up, she would be comparable to her. Chihiro Snow didn't have a good impression of Gu Yuna. After all, she also noticed that this Gu Yuna had bad thoughts about her, and seemed to want to attack her. However, since Lu Yuan liked this Gu Yuna, and this Gu Yuna saved Lu Yuan's life, she naturally had no opinion. In her heart, now Lu Yuan was the most important. Share, looking at Chihiro Snow, so easily agreed to Gu Yuna's matter, Lu Yuan's eyes were full of surprise. He didn't expect that Chihiro Snow's change was actually real. The originally domineering and jealous Shui, or had actually become so magnanimous and reasonable. It seemed that the incident had a huge impact on Shui as well. It actually caused such a huge change in her mentality. However, thinking about it carefully, this was not a bad thing. At least now Chihiro Snow looked more likable, and she had more of the temperament of a woman. Chihiro Snow had become like this today. Lu Yuan didn't have to worry about his harem being set on fire. This made him couldn't help but feel relieved. Chapter 461. Looking at Lu Yuan and Qian Renxue hugging each other tightly, Ma Xiaotao, who was standing not far away, couldn't help but curl her lips. She really couldn't tell that her lord's little brother was quite powerful. He could still stand firmly on 4 boats. She had to admit that he did have some ability. Should she say that he was indeed her little brother? Moreover, her lord's younger brother's eyesight was really good. Each and every one of them was a great beauty. Moreover, all of them had very good figures. His eyes were really sharp. However, was it really appropriate for them to be hugging each other like this in such a solemn place like the Pontiff's Palace? With that in mind, Ma Xiaodao couldn't help but look at Bibi Don, who was sitting high up on the Pontiff's throne. Bibi Don looked at Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow hugging each other tightly, and a dark expression appeared on his face. Even though there were no outsiders here, and the Chrysanthemum Daw and Ghost Law had watched him grow up, it wasn't appropriate for them to be so intimate in front of so many people. Just a while was enough. How long had they been hugging each other? Bibi Don couldn't bear to watch any longer. Ahem, that's enough. It won't be too late for the 2 of you to be intimate when we get back, Bibi Don said softly as he looked at Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. Lu Yuan gently released Chihiro Snow upon hearing this. Chihiro Snow blushed slightly. This was the first time that she had been so intimate with Lu Yuan in public. Even though she was stubborn, she wasn't as thick-skinned as Lu Yuan. She immediately stood beside Lu Yuan and lowered her head silently, but her hands were still tightly gripping on Lu Yuan's arm. They hadn't seen each other for a year, and she missed Lu Yuan too much. Even though she was a little shy, she still didn't want to let go of Lu Yuan. This must be the bright phoenix Douluo's disciple, right? Bibi Don asked as he turned to look at Ma Xiaodao, who was standing to the side. Yes, teacher. This is Uncle Yan's disciple, Ma Xiaotao. Her martial soul is a super martial soul, the Fire Phoenix. She's 30 years old this year, but she's already reached rank 95. She's undoubtedly a top genius, Lu Yuan said with a smile. With Ma Xiaotao's talent, she would definitely be able to topple the world of Fighting One. Even Tang Hao, who was known as the youngest titled Douluo, was already 44 years old when he became a titled Douluo. Even so, he still managed to shock the entire world of Soul Masters. Heaven Do Imperial Academy's Qin Ming, who was at rank 62 at the age of 30, was praised as the second youngest Soul Emperor. You can make a comparison here. One was 30 years old and at level 62. One of them was at level 95 at 30 years old. Qi Ming was really not even fit to carry shoes in front of Ma Xiaodao. Lu Yuan could predict what kind of commotion would occur when Ma Xiaodao's age and abilities were revealed. Indeed, as expected, after Lu Yuan revealed Ma Xiaodao's abilities, everyone present sucked in a cold breath. They looked at Ma Xiaodao with astonishment in their eyes. This was especially so for the Chrysanthemum Douluo and the Ghost Douluo. Their eyes were even filled with astonishment. This little girl who was not even 30 years old had already caught up to them in terms of soul power. Furthermore, her super martial soul, the Fire Phoenix, was of the ultimate fire element. A soul master like this could not be judged by common sense. If she really fought, even the Chrysanthemum Douluo and the Ghost Douluo might not be able to defeat her. In the entire martial soul palace, only Sindoryu, Bibi Don, and the Golden Crocodile could defeat Ma Xiaodao. In fact, it would be impossible for the Golden Crocodile to win easily. After all, Ma Xiaodao had a 100,000-year soul ring. A 100,000-year soul ring was basically a legend in the Fighting One era. There were very few people who had a 100,000-year soul ring, and those who did were all top-tier existences. Indeed, she's very talented. Bibi Don looked at Ma Xiaodao with a tinge of astonishment in her eyes. Her talent was probably not inferior to hers. She was probably even qualified to become a god. Obuchi, you really have some capable people under you. Bibidon sighed softly as she looked at Lu Yuan. None of the three titled Douluo who had appeared under Lu Yuan were simple. Long Xiaoyao was an ultimate Douluo. There was no need to mention him. Yin Xiaozhi's martial soul was the radiant phoenix. He was a rank 97 transcendent Douluo and was very strong. He wasn't much weaker than the golden crocodile. After all, he also had a 100,000-year soul ring. He was the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, and the dragon god Luomu's personal disciple. How could he be simple? Furthermore, there was Ma Xiaotao, who had reached rank 95 before the age of 30 and possessed an ultimate fire martial soul. Lu Yuan's subordinates weren't weak at all. He didn't know where his disciple had found so many capable people. However, Bibidon didn't intend to probe further. His disciple had always been mysterious. As long as she was on his side, it was enough. There was no need to probe further. Bibidon had been in charge of the Martial Soul Palace for so many years. Naturally, she had her own set of wisdom. Lu Yuan smiled in response to Bibidon's compliment. He didn't reply. His Dragon King Palace wasn't weak now. It had 4 titled Douluo. However, it was still a little inferior to the Holy Hall and the Pontiff's Palace. It wasn't time for him to be arrogant and complacent. By the way, teacher, there's something I need to report to you. Lu Yuan's mind turned as he remembered something important. Are you talking about those evil soul masters? Bibidon asked. Yes, teacher. The evil soul masters that Cher and I met in the dense fog forest were all from the Holy Ghost Church. Holy Ghost Church. Bibidon furrowed her brow. She had never heard of this name before. Ever since Chihiro Snow returned, she had been a little absent-minded because of Lu Yuan. Apart from briefing Bibidon about what she had encountered in the dense fog forest, she hadn't revealed any information about the Holy Ghost Church. Furthermore, Chihiro Snow didn't know much about the Holy Ghost Church. Therefore, Bibidon didn't know much about the Holy Ghost Church. The Holy Ghost Church is a church formed by evil soul masters. They are very powerful. They have 4 emperors, 2 emperors, a church leader, and 8 protectors. The 8 protectors are all titled Douluo. The 4 emperors are all transcendent Douluo above rank 96. As for the 2 emperors, they should be peak stage Douluo. As for the church leader, he should be an ultimate Douluo. The Holy Ghost Church is definitely a great enemy of the Martial Soul Palace. Therefore, we can't let our guard down. We have to strengthen our defenses. Lu Yuan said with a serious expression. Bibidon furrowed her brow when she heard this. The Holy Ghost Church, which she had never heard of, was actually so powerful. Chapter 462. Obuchi, how much do you know about the Holy Ghost Church? Tell us everything, Bibidon said softly as she blinked her beautiful eyes. I do know a little. The Holy Ghost Church isn't a local religion on the Douluo continent. They come from another continent, Lu Yuan said. Another continent? Everyone was astonished when they heard this. There was a doubtful look in their eyes. Yes, on the western coast of the Douluo continent. There's another continent across the vast ocean. This continent is called the Sun-Moon continent, and the Holy Ghost Church is the native religion of the Sun-Moon continent. Furthermore, it's the national religion of the Sun-Moon continent. The Holy Ghost Church has been rooted in the Sun-Moon continent for many years. They're very powerful. Their status on the Sun-Moon continent isn't much lower than our Martial Soul Palace's status on the Douluo continent. Their members are basically all evil soul masters. Evil soul masters are a very strange existence. They have all sorts of tricks up their sleeves, but they are undoubtedly very vicious. It's very difficult for a normal soul master to win against an evil soul master of the same rank, because the fighting strength of an evil soul master is very strong. Just like the evil soul Douluo that we met this time. They're very strong. The 3 of them were able to hold back the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo. If they were ordinary soul Douluo, 3 of them might not be able to hold back one of them, let alone 2 titled Douluo. That's why we can't underestimate evil soul masters. They're an existence that's on the same level as our martial soul palace. The Clear Sky sect and the Seven Treasures glazed sect can't compare to them. We have to be very cautious against them. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, the faces of Bibi Dong and the others could not help but become solemn. An opponent with such strength was indeed worthy of being treated seriously. Furthermore, their martial soul palace's goal was to unify the entire continent. They couldn't let anything that could ruin their plan go. The Holy Ghost Church was undoubtedly worthy of their vigilance. According to what you've said, there should be 2 soul Douluo from the Holy Ghost Church who managed to escape. They've either crossed the ocean and returned to the Sun-Moon continent, or they're still hiding on the continent. If they're really planning to invade the Douluo continent, it's very likely that the Holy Ghost Church has colluded with the remaining evil soul masters on the Douluo continent. Bibi Don said with a solemn expression, "Teacher, you're right. These members of the Holy Ghost Church crossed the ocean to the Douluo continent in order to prepare for the Holy Ghost Church's invasion of the Douluo continent. They built the Blood Moon altar and killed so many soul beasts as sacrifices so that they could open a spatial door and bring those evil soul masters over. When the time comes, they'll work together with the remaining evil soul masters on the Douluo continent. Perhaps they'll really cause great damage to the Martial Soul Palace or even the 2 empires. Right now, the order that the Martial Soul Palace has painstakingly established might completely collapse. That's why I hope that you can send someone to keep an eye on these evil soul masters. As for the Dragon King's palace, I'll use my own abilities to find out where these evil soul masters are. It's best to get rid of these rats hiding in the dark as soon as possible." Lu Yuan said clearly. "Yes, you're right. I'll pay attention to this. I'll give orders to the branch halls to keep an eye on the evil soul masters. If there's any movement, they'll report it to me immediately." Bibi Don said softly. After hearing this, Lu Yuan nodded silently. Although the Holy Ghost Church was powerful, they were separated by the vast ocean. As long as the Martial Soul Palace took proper precautions and made proper preparations, it wouldn't be easy for those evil soul masters to cause any trouble. After all, the Martial Soul Palace was spread across the entire continent. It wasn't just for show. Bibi Don couldn't help but nod as he looked at his outstanding disciple. Right now, Lu Yuan already had the aura of a leader. Furthermore, he was very thoughtful. It seemed like that matter could be pushed up the agenda. "Obuchi," Bibi Don called out softly. "Do you have any instructions for me, teacher?" Lu Yuan asked. "I don't have any instructions. Seeing that you're travel-worn, you must have rushed all the way back. I don't have anything else to do here. You can go back to the island in the middle of the lake first, freshen up, and accompany your girlfriends. Teacher has something to discuss with the elders for the time being." Bibi Dong said softly. "All right, teacher. I'll take my leave then." After hearing Bibidon's words, a trace of doubt flashed across Lu Yuan's eyes. Could there be something important other than the Holy Ghost Church? He actually needed to discuss it with the elders, and the most important thing was that Bibi Dong didn't seem to want him to know about it. This made Lu Yuan a little apprehensive. What is Bibi Don trying to do? With some doubts in his heart, Lu Yuan still chose to take his leave. Since Bibi Don didn't want him to know, there was no need for him to probe further. He would naturally know what he needed to know when the time came. There was no need for him to be troubled now. "All right, go." Bibi Don nodded slightly. After seeing this, Lu Yuan grabbed Chihiro Snow's hand and turned around to leave the pontiff's palace. Behind them, Hulina and the rest of the girls hurriedly followed. "Junior brother, wait for me." Hulina took 2 steps forward and grabbed Lu Yuan's remaining left hand, then hugged it tightly in her arms. "Junior brother, senior sister was a little rude just now. You won't be angry, right?" Hulina looked at Lu Yuan with a pair of big eyes, blinking with a pitiful expression on her face. Seeing Hulina's appearance, Lu Yuan couldn't help but laugh. Just a moment ago, she had a valiant and high-spirited look, and now she was pretending to be pitiful. This woman is really a drama queen. However, Lu Yuan naturally wouldn't be angry with her in his heart. Instead, He was a little touched. This girl really threw her heart on him, and what he gave her was far from enough. If you don't want me to be angry, you better go back and wash yourself clean. Tonight, let me see your sincerity. Looking at Hulina, the corners of Lu Yuan's mouth curled up slightly as he said with a smile. Hearing Lu Yuan's bold words, even with Hulina's enthusiasm and openness, she couldn't help but blush slightly, but she didn't refuse. Instead, she was looking forward to it. It's been a year, and she really wants to. But what did Junior Brother mean just now? Isn't he going back to the Lake Heart Island now? Chapter 463. Junior Brother, don't tell me you're not going back to the Lake Heart Island with us? Hulina asked. Yes, I'm going to the Angel Temple with Cher first. I haven't been back for so long, and with the matter of the Holy Spirit Church, I'm going to see that old man Sendoryu. Lu Yuan said with a faint smile. Obuchi, what are you talking about? That's my grandfather. Seeing Lu Yuan directly call Sendoryu old man, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but hit him, her tone carrying a trace of reproach. All right, then I'll call him Great Consecrator. Lu Yuan said helplessly. You should call him grandfather like I do. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes looked straight at Lu Yuan. Her gaze was very serious, making Lu Yuan unable to resist for a moment. All right, call him grandfather then. For your sake, I'll let that old man bask in some glory. Facing Chihiro Snow's gaze, Lu Yuan sighed and said. Seeing Lu Yuan's unwilling appearance, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but curl her lips. This guy's opinion of his grandfather wasn't small. However, as long as he was willing to call him grandfather, Chihiro Snow would be satisfied. Senior sister, Cher and I are going to the Angel Temple now. You and Zhu Qing should take Sister Xiaodao back to the Lake Heart Island first. While you're at it, arrange a room for Sister Xiaodao and prepare daily necessities. Lu Yuan said, Little brother master, I'll go with you to the Angel Temple. Teacher instructed me to stay close to you and protect you. Ma Xiaodao said, No need, Sister Xiaodao. You go with the senior sisters first. This is the Martial Soul Palace, my headquarters. What danger can there be? Furthermore, the Angel Temple isn't a place where outsiders are allowed to enter. Ma Xiaodao said softly. All right then. Seeing Lu Yuan's firm attitude and the fact that this was the Martial Soul Palace, there was indeed no danger, so Ma Xiaodao agreed with Lu Yuan's decision. Senior sister. Lu Yuan moved his head closer to Hulina's ear, lowered his voice, and said, Remember to leave the door open for me tonight. If you perform well tonight, I will reward you. What reward? Hulina asked curiously. It's a very precious reward. You'll definitely love it. Really? Hulina's eyes widened. Of course, do I need to lie to you? Lu Yuan said with a chuckle. No. Hulina shook her head. Do you want this reward? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. Hulina nodded. Since you want to, why are you still here? Why don't you hurry back and prepare? Lu Yuan said. Okay. I'll go back right away. With that, Hulina pecked Lu Yuan's face and hurriedly pulled Zhu Qing and Ma Xiaodao back to the island in the middle of the lake. Seeing her anxious look, Lu Yuan couldn't help but shake his head and smile. This little fox was really adorable. Obuchi. Chihiro Snow's pleasant voice sounded in Lu Yuan's ear. What's wrong, Cher? Lu Yuan couldn't help but turn his head to look at Chihiro Snow beside him. You're quite good at dealing with this, Hulina. Chihiro Snow said. Senior sister, is actually very easy to get along with. She's also very obedient and has a good heart. As for what she said in the Pope's palace, she didn't have any malicious intentions. Cher, don't take it to heart. Lu Yuan said. I didn't take it to heart. What she said actually makes sense. I did push you too hard before, and I was a little willful and reckless. But from now on, I won't do that again. I'll be as obedient as Hulina and the others. No matter what you do, I'll support you. Chihiro Snow said softly. Seeing the completely different gentle Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh and say, Cher, it's actually very good for you to change your willfulness and forcefulness. But you don't have to be as obedient to me as senior sister. Your personalities are different, and there's no need to forcefully change your personality for me. Even Zhu sometimes throws a tantrum at me. This is actually quite good. If you're always obedient to me and listen to everything I say, you won't be the same Xiao Shui that I used to like. Furthermore, my personality has become more and more arrogant under the influence of my martial soul. Sometimes I'll even act recklessly. I might not necessarily not make any mistakes in the future, so I need someone to control me and not let me make any big mistakes. In this world, the only person who can control me is you. Even teacher can't do that, because you're the most special in my heart. So, you really don't have to listen to everything I say. You just have to be yourself and be a good wife. If I really do something wrong, you should control me and scold me. You don't have to deliberately make yourself suffer and indulge me. We're equal, and you also need to have your own personality. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow with an unprecedentedly serious expression. Being obedient was very good, but this kind of personality wasn't suitable for Chihiro Snow. For Chihiro Snow, it was fine as long as she changed her willfulness and forcefulness. It was fine as long as she didn't force him to answer everything. As for the rest, there was really no need for that. Looking at the sincere Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but cry again. This time, she was really touched by Lu Yuan's love. Obuchi, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but throw herself into Lu Yuan's arms and hug him tightly. Okay, don't cry. You're the dignified Chihiro Snow, the future angel god. How can you cry so casually? The Cher I know is valiant and heroic. She's not inferior to men. She won't cry all the time. Lu Yuan gently patted Chihiro Snow's head and said with a smile, "Okay, I won't cry anymore." Chihiro Snow raised her head and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with her right hand. That's right. Lu Yuan gently wiped away the remaining tears on Chihiro Snow's face and smiled as he held Chihiro Snow's jade hand. "Let's go and see that old man, Sendori. I said you have to call him Grandpa." Chihiro Snow's slightly reproachful voice sounded, and she couldn't help but hit Lu Yuan again. "Hee, I like to call him old man. At most, I'll call him old man in private. When we meet, I'll call him Grandpa." Lu Yuan laughed. "Rascal, I really don't know what to do with you." Seeing Lu Yuan like this, Chihiro Snow helplessly shook her head. As long as this guy is willing to call him Grandpa when they meet, it's enough. In private, it's actually not that important. Cher, do you think your grandpa will urge us to have a baby when he sees us this time?" Lu Yuan said with a smile. I'm afraid it's very likely." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but nod. With her grandpa's personality, this kind of thing is really likely to happen. Chapter 464. Angel Temple. A huge angel statue stood tall, and an indescribable divine majesty spread out in all directions from the statue. Sendoryu was dressed in white, with his hands behind his back, and his eyes fixed on the angel statue in front of him. Shui is now over rank 60, and her martial soul has evolved into an 8-winged angel. It's time to start the final inheritance. With Shui-Er's talent, she should be able to trigger the 9 tests. Sendoryu muttered to himself. It should have started a year ago, but that kid never came back, so Cher was always restless and couldn't concentrate. Fortunately, that kid finally came back today, so it's time for the final step to be carried out. There is a trace of anticipation in Thousand Dao Lu's voice, as well as a trace of melancholy. I hope that the goal that our angel clan has been working towards for 10,000 years can be seen on Shui. The glory of angels will definitely shine on the entire continent. Sendoryu's face carried a trace of longing. This was the most noble goal in his heart and the greatest wish of his life. Ta-da-ta! A series of footsteps sounded, and Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow walked into the angel temple hand in hand. Hearing the footsteps behind him, Sendoryu turned around with a gentle smile on his face. "You're here, Grandpa," Chihiro Snow called softly. "Greet him." Chihiro Snow gently squeezed Lu Yuan's hand and gave him an urging look. "Grandpa, Seeing Chihiro Snow's urging look, Lu Yuan could only open his mouth and call Sendoryu Grandpa. Forget it, just treat it as giving face to Chihiro Snow. Hearing the way the two addressed each other, the smile on Sendoryu's face became even wider. His gaze first swept over Chihiro Snow, with a trace of kindness and care. Sendoryu naturally doted on his only granddaughter. His gaze turned slightly, and glanced at Lu Yuan, who was at the side. He sized him up for a while, and said, "Kid, you're finally willing to come back? Do you know how much Shue has missed you this past year? She didn't eat or drink because of you, and she lost a lot of weight and became much more haggard. This old man's heart ached when I saw that. You brat, you actually stayed with another woman for a year and didn't come back. Do you still care about Cher?" Sendoryu stared straight at Lu Yuan with a trace of questioning. "Grandpa, this has nothing to do with Obuchi. Obuchi had no choice. Furthermore, if it weren't for me, Obuchi wouldn't have been so severely injured by evil soul masters, and he wouldn't have been left behind for a year. This is all my fault, and it has nothing to do with Obuchi." Faced with Sendoryu's questioning, Lu Yuan didn't say anything, but Chihiro Snow couldn't wait to help Lu Yuan explain. Sigh. Seeing how nervous Chihiro Snow was, Sendoryu couldn't help but sigh softly. His granddaughter's heart is really all for this kid. "Obuchi, Cher has such feelings for you. Don't let her down. Otherwise, this old man won't let you off." With Chihiro Snow stopping him, Sendoryu naturally couldn't continue to question him. He could only warn his grandson-in-law as a grandfather. "What? They're not married yet, so I can't call him grandson-in-law? They've already slept together, so what's the point of marriage? Furthermore, with his granddaughter's current state, how can she escape from this kid's clutches? She's already been devoured by him. Even as a grandfather, he could only accept his fate when faced with such a situation. Furthermore, this kid is indeed very outstanding, and is indeed worthy of Xiao Shui. Grandpa, don't worry. Cher is the most important person in my heart. I naturally won't let her down. To me, she's more important than my life." Lu Yuan had a serious look on his face as he spoke. That's more like it. Sendoryu still believed in Lu Yuan's promise. Everything else aside, didn't this kid sacrifice himself to save Cher during the trip to the fog forest a year ago? He was still very good to Cher, so he could rest assured that he'd leave Cher in his care. As for what he'd said just now, he just couldn't help but remind him out of his love for his granddaughter as a grandfather. "Judging from the aura on your body, you seem to have reached level 57? Sendoryu looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of amazement in his eyes. To reach level 57 at the age of 14, his talent was even higher than Shui-Er's, as expected of someone who had obtained the inheritance of the Supreme God. If the Martial Soul Palace wanted to flourish in the future, it would really have to rely on him and Cher. I reached level 57 by luck." Lu Yuan met Sendoryu's gaze and nodded. He couldn't hide something of this level, and there was no need to hide it. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but look at Lu Yuan with a hint of astonishment in her eyes. Although she knew that Lu Yuan had already become a Soul King, she didn't know that Lu Yuan had reached level 57 in just a year. Is this guy's cultivation speed that fast? Not bad. Your talent is truly rare in this world. Even this old man is far inferior to you at your age." Sendoryu sighed softly, and there was a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Sendoryu was actually very happy that such a prodigy belonged to the Martial Soul Palace, and he was even his grandson-in-law. "Oh yes, you're here to tell me something, right?" Sendoryu asked. "Yes, it's about those evil soul masters." After that, Lu Yuan told Sendoryu about the Holy Ghost Church that he had told Bibi-Dan earlier. "I see. Don't worry, I'll get the consecrators in the consecration hall to fully cooperate with Bibi-Dan on this matter. I guess that's why you're here, right?" Sendoryu asked with a smile. "Yes, the Holy Ghost Church is the Martial Soul Palace's greatest enemy. Against such an enemy, we have to be united first. We can't have any internal cracks. Otherwise, we won't be able to unleash our full strength because of these cracks when we face them. This will be very disadvantageous for the overall situation, Lu Yuan said. Yes, you're right. Evil Soul Masters are the Martial Soul Palace's natural enemies. When we face Evil Soul Masters, I'll get them to put aside their differences with the Pontiff's Palace. Everything will be done according to Bibidan's instructions. After all, she's a pope, and she's very capable and resourceful, Sendoryu said after pondering for a moment. Although he still had a grudge against Bibidan for killing his son, the Martial Soul Palace's interests were more important than anything else. Evil Soul Masters and six-winged angels were mortal enemies, and they had to be eradicated. He was willing to put aside his prejudice on this matter and support Bibidan. After all, in Sendoryu's eyes, the Martial Soul Palace was the most important. Chapter 465. Furthermore, the future consecration hall would naturally be handed over to Chihiro Snow, while the Pontiff Palace would be inherited by Lu Yuan. The future Pontiff of the Martial Soul Palace would definitely be either one of them. No matter which one of them became the Pontiff, the other would definitely do his best to support him. The strength of the Consecration Hall and the Pontiff's Palace would eventually merge. Even if Lu Yuan became the Pontiff, the position of Pontiff would still be passed down to his child when he and Xiao Shui had a child in the future. This meant that the position of Pontiff would still fall into the hands of the Qian family, the angels. So what if they supported Bibidan now? In the end, the entire Martial Soul Palace would still return to the Qian family. They would definitely not lose out on this deal. Qian Dao Lu, this old man's calculations were not bad. Old people were shrewd. Thank you, grandfather. Lu Yuan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Sendoryu had agreed to his request. The Holy Ghost Church was not like the Clear Sky sect. They were very difficult to deal with. Lu Yuan did not want the Pontiff's Palace and the Consecration Hall to waste time arguing with each other when Evil Soul Masters were in danger. This was not something he wanted to see. What he wanted was a united Martial Soul Palace. When the Pontiff's Palace and the Consecration Hall's strength merged, it would definitely be a terrifying force. It's nothing. It's all for the Martial Soul Palace. Sendoryu smiled and said, "It's good that you're here today. I have something very important for Xiao Shui to do. Since you're here, Obuchi, let's go up and give it a try." Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow looked at each other when they heard this. They could see a trace of doubt in each other's eyes. Something important? What was this important thing that he was referring to? Sendoryu took a few steps forward and stopped in front of the huge angel statue. "Snowy, Obuchi, come here." Looking at the huge angel statue, Lu Yuan's face flashed with a hint of understanding. Could the important thing be? "Shui, you're already at rank 66, and your martial soul has evolved into an unprecedented 8-winged angel. You're the most talented among all the angels, and you've finally matured to the point where you can take the angel test. Take 2 steps forward and see what kind of test you can trigger," Sendoryu said softly. As expected, after listening to Sendoryu's words, Lu Yuan secretly nodded in his heart. His guess was right. Cher was about to start taking the 9 angels test. However, this time was more than 5 years earlier than in the original work. But thinking about it, Cher's growth had obviously sped up with his arrival. Even her martial soul had evolved. It was normal for her to take the test in advance. Once the test began, Cher's strength might soar rapidly. The 9 angels test. Cher is now on the path to becoming a god, so it's time for me to start working hard. It's just that it's been a few years, and my understanding of the clear air divine seed is still very shallow. Even now, I can only use a small portion of the clear air divine power. There's still a long way to go if I want to create my own godhood. Looking at Chihiro Snow in front of him, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh softly. It was time for him to speed up his growth. Otherwise, if he were to be left behind by Shui again, it would not look good on him. He was a man. How could he be weaker than his woman? Guyena had no choice. He couldn't be left behind by Chihiro Snow again. Qianren Shui took 2 steps forward. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light radiated from the angel statue. A faintly discernible chanting could be heard. A divine aura filled the entire angel temple. In front of the statue, A screen of light appeared in the air. It was a brilliant golden color, and it seemed so noble and holy. The sacred golden light enveloped Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow's 8-winged angel martial soul automatically attached itself to her body without any control. For pairs of pure white wings gently stretched out behind her back. It was a holy and pure sight. At this moment, the bright golden light screen suddenly trembled, and then it instantly began to give birth to another light screen. In just a few moments, 6 light curtains were formed. The 7th. Under Sendoryu's gaze, the 7th screen of light appeared without pause. The 8th. After the 7th screen of light appeared, the 8th screen of light also appeared. After the 8th screen of light appeared, Sendoryu's eyes widened. Whether or not he succeeded depended on this final moment. Lu Yuan's gaze focused slightly, and he sized up the golden screen of light. His heart was very calm. He had full confidence in Chihiro Snow. Come on, the 9th test. Lu Yuan couldn't help but secretly shout. Finally, under the gazes of the two, the dense golden light converged, and a 9th golden curtain of light finally appeared. At the same time the 9th curtain of light appeared, a dazzling golden light directly broke through the barrier of the angel temple, rushing straight into the clouds. The divine might of an angel was released without restraint. At the same time, Bibi Dawn, who was in the middle of a meeting in the Pope's palace, suddenly trembled. A cold light flashed through her eyes, and in the depths of her eyes, there was a darkness that seemed to be able to devour souls. What a disgusting aura! Bibi Dawn slightly frowned, but soon after, she seemed to have thought of something. Did Cher trigger the 9 tests of angels? Bibi Dawn secretly thought, and a trace of hesitation appeared on her face. The cold light in her eyes gradually faded away and was replaced by a dense complexity. 9 screens of light appeared together, emitting a divine and resplendent radiance. In the next moment, the 9 screens of light shattered and turned into a stream of light, directly entering between Chihiro Snow's eyebrows. The golden light faded away, and a golden 6-winged angel brand appeared between Chihiro Snow's eyebrows. Its appearance was exactly the same as that of the huge angel statue. The 9 tests of angels. Seeing the angel brand between Chihiro Snow's eyebrows, Sendoryu's face instantly became wild with joy. Sure enough, the person that their angel race had been waiting for 10,000 years was his granddaughter. His granddaughter was destined to be the one who would spread the glory of angels across the whole continent. The 9 tests of angels. A trace of a smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face. He wasn't surprised by this result at all. In the original work, Chihiro Snow could pass the 9 tests, let alone now that Chihiro Snow had been strengthened in all aspects. The 9 tests of angels. Chihiro Snow's red lips slightly opened, and a trace of joy appeared on her face. As the possessor of the 6-winged angel martial soul, she naturally knew what the 9 tests of angels represented. This meant that as long as she passed the 9 tests, she would be able to completely fuse with the angel god armor and become the new 6-winged angel god. How could she not be happy in her heart? Moreover, with the 9 tests of angels, she would be able to better follow in Obuchi's footsteps. Chihiro Snow turned her head to look at Lu Yuan and smiled, her watery golden eyes faintly rippling. Chapter 466. Facing Chihiro Snow's watery golden eyes, Lu Yuan smiled slightly, his eyes filled with gentleness. Congratulations, Cher. You've taken the most important step to becoming a god. Lu Yuan said softly. You'll have this day, sooner or later. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes were fixed on Lu Yuan, her eyes filled with tenderness. She was able to successfully take the angel's 9 trials. Obuchi's talent was much stronger than hers. Wouldn't taking the trial be a piece of cake for him? Other things aside, he had the heart of the sea god in his hands. This was an important item for the inheritance of the sea god. It was just that this guy had high standards and didn't care for the position of the sea god. In addition, he had a god seed with him. In the future, he could create his own god's position. Chihiro Snow was extremely confident in Lu Yuan. This confidence came from the bottom of her heart. She firmly believed that this man would one day rule this continent. Not to mention other things, just this guy's 3 martial spirits, one stronger than the other. Triplet martial spirits. Perhaps this should be an unprecedented talent in history. The Golden Dragon was already comparable to her 8-winged angel. The power of his polychoria was even more shocking. The most shocking thing was the pitch-black long spear that was flickering with blood-red light. It emitted an aura that was above the heavens and the earth. The endless, murderous, and ferocious aura caused Qian Rinchue's heart to tremble. If that spear hadn't missed, the Blood Emperor would have died on the spot. According to Obuchi, that spear was called the God-slaying spear. It lived up to its name. When Obuchi grew to a certain extent, perhaps this spear could really kill a god. Therefore, perhaps only by taking the angel's 9 trials could she barely ensure that she could keep up with Obuchi's footsteps and not be left too far behind. She wanted to be able to help Obuchi in the future. She didn't want to hide behind and watch Obuchi struggle alone. Chihiro Snow stared at Lu Yuan and thought to himself, "Cough, cough." Seeing the two sweetly looking at each other, Sendoryu couldn't help but cough. This was the Angel Temple, a sacred and dignified place. If the two of them wanted to be intimate, they could go back, but not here. Sendoryu's eyes were still filled with surprise. He looked at Chihiro Snow with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to melt him. His granddaughter had indeed obtained one of the 9 angel trials. How could he not be excited? However, Sendoryu was a transcendent Douluo after all. His mental state wasn't bad, and his eyes regained their calm after a brief moment. Although Schwer had obtained the 9 tests, it wasn't that easy to pass them. As a grandfather, he still needed to help Schwer from his side. Now it was time to see what kind of test Obuchi could get. It should be impossible for him to pass the 9 tests. After all, the 9 tests could only be triggered by those with the angel martial soul. Now that Cher had passed the 9th test, Obuchi should be the same as him, who had passed the 7th test. Sendoryu thought to himself, "Obuchi, come up and give a try." Sendoryu said, "Obuchi, go ahead." Chihiro Snow smiled and said gently, "In." Lu Yuan nodded and walked step by step towards the angel statue, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes. There were many secrets in his sea of consciousness. When the angel god sent down the test, would it discover anything? System, can you block everything in my sea of consciousness? Lu Yuan asked. Lu Yuan thought that since the system was so mysterious, it should be able to block his sea of consciousness and prevent the angel god's divine power from entering. Blocking the entire sea of consciousness is not advisable. That will leave a flaw. The host can block things in the sea of consciousness. However, with the host's current power, you can only block one thing. The system's voice sounded. Then block the God-slaying spear for me. The clear air spirit seed is a divine power with no attributes. Since even the god of life and the god of destruction can't discover it, the angel god definitely can't either. As for the sea god's heart, that thing is related to the sea god and not the angel god, so it shouldn't be a big deal. As for the golden dragon's martial soul, there's no need to block it. But system, you should be able to block the god-slaying spear, right? Lu Yuan asked. Yes, the system said. Ding, the god-slaying spear has been blocked. The god-slaying spear's power is now completely restrained. As long as the host doesn't actively activate it, it will be like an ordinary martial soul. The angel god's divine power won't discover the secrets of the god-slaying spear and will only think that it is the host's second martial soul. The system's cold voice sounded. Is that so? So you only blocked the god-slaying spear's power. I thought you hid the entire god-slaying spear. But that's enough. To a god, even if it's a twin martial soul, it shouldn't be a big deal. Knowing that the system had completely blocked the god-slaying spear's power, Lu Yuan relaxed a lot. This martial soul was too strong. It was too dangerous to expose it in the eyes of a god. When the sea god Shadow discovered the god-slaying spear's power, it wanted to contact the main body and send the news to the Heavenly Realms Committee. But this idiot provoked the god-slaying spear and was locked on by the murderous aura. Plus, the clear air spirit seed had blocked his sea of consciousness. That was why he was killed by the god-slaying spear. Lu Yuan thought to himself. He slowly walked forward and stopped in front of the angel statue. Lu Yuan stood still. The rich golden light scattered again. But unlike Chihiro's snow, there was no bright golden light screen this time. Instead, a pure golden light came from the huge holy sword in the angel statue's hand and entered Lu Yuan's forehead. The light flashed, and a pure golden holy sword imprint appeared. What kind of test is this? Looking at the holy sword imprint on Lu Yuan's forehead, Sendoryu was a little stunned. If it was a top test, shouldn't it be red? Just like him, it was a red imprint. But now, what did this holy sword imprint mean? He expressed that he didn't understand. This is the 9 tests of holy sword. Lu Yuan said softly as he felt the information in his mind. 9 tests of holy sword? There's such a test? Sendoryu's eyes widened. He had served the angel god for so many years, but he had never heard of such a test. Even Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with some confusion. 9 tests of holy sword? She seemed to have never heard of such a test. Yes, the 9 tests of holy sword. Lu Yuan sighed softly. He looked at Chihiro Snow, who was not far away. His eyes flashed. The reason he got this so-called 9 tests of holy sword was because of Cher. Obuchi, why are you looking at me like that? Seeing Lu Yuan's gaze on him, Chihiro Snow was a little puzzled. Chapter 467. Because I got this assessment because of you, Lu Yuan said with a faint smile. Because of me? Chihiro Snow's eyes widened in confusion. What does Obuchi getting the 9 holy sword examinations have to do with me? Yes, it's because of you. Lu Yuan said. What do you mean? Sendoryu couldn't help but ask. In fact, my 9 holy sword examinations, to put it bluntly, exist for Cher. The holy sword is the weapon of the angel and represents endless battles. The angel god gave me this 9 holy sword examinations in the hope that I can protect Cher and clear the obstacles ahead for Cher, just like the holy sword. In other words, I have to protect Cher. This is the so-called 9 holy sword examinations. It's to bring the relationship between Cher and me closer. Perhaps the angel god is looking for a power to protect his inheritor, and I have a close relationship with Cher and my talent is good, so he gave me this assessment. Lu Yuan said with a smile. To be honest, Lu Yuan was also surprised to get this assessment. The angel god values his inheritor too much. He forcibly arranged such an assessment for him, just like finding a babysitter for Chihiro Snow. Lu Yuan was very clear about the angel god's idea. He wanted his inheritor to have an extra protective power to ensure that she would not die halfway. The reason why he gave Lu Yuan the 9 holy sword examinations was because Lu Yuan's talent was too high and his future achievements were destined to be extraordinary. He wanted Lu Yuan to better protect Chihiro Snow. This made Lu Yuan feel a little funny. This angel god is really interesting. According to Lu Yuan's speculation, his assessment is probably linked to Chihiro Snow's assessment. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such a coincidence that it's the 9 holy sword examinations. It's like this. Sendoryu couldn't help but widen his eyes and look at the huge angel statue with a trace of surprise in his eyes. How much did the angel god want to pass on the position of God? Not only did he have his grandfather, who was an oracle, to assist him, but he also forcefully arranged the 9 sacred sword examinations for Lu Yuan. Wasn't it obvious that he wanted Cher to inherit the position of angel god? However, Sendoryu liked this kind of angelic goddess-sama, because didn't this mean that Cher's chances of becoming a god were higher? This was good news. Looking at the happy Sendoryu, Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. This old man is still thinking about the glory of the angel. These oracles were indeed fanatical believers. However, thinking of his first assessment, The corner of Lu Yuan's mouth twitched slightly. He found it hard to imagine that his first assessment was like this. However, looking at Chihiro, Snow not far away, his brows trembled. He always felt that Chihiro Snow's assessment might be similar to his. "Share, what was your first assessment?" Lu Yuan asked. "First assessment?" Chihiro Snow was puzzled, then closed her beautiful eyes slightly, feeling the content of the angel assessment in her mind, and her face was slightly red. The first assessment of the angel, the blessing of the holy sword, close contact with the inheritor of the 9 sacred sword examinations, and Chihiro Snow's voice was getting smaller and smaller until it was inaudible. And what? Lu Yuan couldn't help but have a smile on his face. When he heard Chihiro Snow's words, he reacted in an instant. Chihiro Snow's assessment was exactly the same as his. "You know clearly, and you still ask me?" Chihiro Snow couldn't help but glare at Lu Yuan. This assessment obviously requires the two of them. How could this guy not know? Hee. Lu Yuan chuckled, took 2 steps forward, and directly pulled Chihiro Snow into his arms and kissed her red lips. The first assessment of the holy sword, close contact with the inheritor of the angel, and kiss for half an hour. This was the information Lu Yuan received for the first assessment. Lu Yuan was even a little puzzled. Why would the angel god set up such an assessment? He and Chihiro Snow had done more intimate things, so what was a kiss? Woo! Chihiro Snow's red lips were kissed by Lu Yuan, and her whole body seemed to have lost all strength. She lay in Lu Yuan's arms and let him take advantage of her. Just like Lu Yuan said, she and Lu Yuan had done more intimate things, so a kiss was nothing. However, Sendoryu was still here, and this was her most respected grandfather. Chihiro Snow was still a little shy to kiss Lu Yuan in front of her grandfather. Moreover, half an hour of kissing seemed a little long. Looking at the two hugging and kissing, Sendoryu's mouth twitched slightly. Just a moment ago, he also received a message from the angel god. What he didn't expect was the so-called first assessment to be something like this. Is this still the assessment given by the angel god who shines holy light all over the continent? Isn't this too childish? Sendoryu thought in his heart. Half an hour wasn't a long time, and it passed very quickly. A voice sounded in Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow's minds almost at the same time. The first assessment of the Holy Sword has been completed. Rewards: 500 years of increase in the age of all soul rings, 15% increase in the compatibility of the 8-winged angel martial soul, and 45% increase in the compatibility of the existing martial soul. 500 years of increase in the age of all soul rings, 15% increase in the compatibility of the 8-winged angel martial soul. Hearing the voice in his mind, Lu Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. An increase in the age of soul rings was a normal reward. Although it was only 500 years, it was better than nothing. However, the 15% increase in the compatibility of the 8-winged angel martial soul was a little interesting. If the compatibility between martial souls was more than 50%, there was a very high possibility of martial soul fusion skills. And his and Chihiro Snow's martial soul compatibility had already reached 45%, which was not far from 50%. Needless to say, the remaining 30% was brought about by the clear energy. His golden dragon martial soul and Chihiro Snow's 8-winged angel martial soul had both been soaked in the clear energy, so it was normal for them to have 30% compatibility. And once there was a martial soul fusion skill, needless to say, the relationship between him and Chihiro Snow would be even closer. After all, martial soul fusion skills were usually used by lovers or brothers, and all of them were extremely close. Could it be that the angel god made this so-called first assessment, making him and Chihiro Snow kiss in public, just to increase the compatibility of his and Chihiro Snow's martial souls? Let the two of them create a martial soul fusion skill? Lu Yuan thought to himself, and felt that it was very possible. After all, it was already 45%. If it increased a little later, he and Chihiro Snow would very likely have a martial soul fusion skill. How powerful would the martial soul fusion skill of the Golden Dragon and the Six-Winged Angel be? In fact, Lu Yuan was also very curious. Chapter 468. One was the Golden Dragon with the ultimate strength and the strongest physical body, while the other was the Eight-Winged Angel, a god-ranked martial soul with the power of holy, light, and fire. Once these two were combined, how powerful would it be? It was really exciting. Share, what's your reward? Lu Yuan asked. My angel affinity has increased by 5%, and my compatibility with the Golden Dragon martial soul has increased by 15%. My compatibility with the Golden Dragon martial soul is currently at 45%. Qian Renshua softly replied to Lu Yuan's question. Obuchi, martial soul compatibility, could it be? Chihiro Snow's face had a trace of surprise as he looked at Lu Yuan. It should be to create a martial soul fusion skill for us. When this 15% reward came out, I felt a faint holy power in my body. Perhaps this is the reason for our 15% compatibility increase. Lu Yuan said softly. The angel god naturally didn't have the power of the Golden Dragon, but he had the holy power. He could increase Lu Yuan's martial soul by increasing the holy power in Lu Yuan's martial soul to push Lu Yuan's martial soul and Chihiro Snow's martial soul closer. This was the reason for the so-called increase in compatibility. Create a martial soul fusion skill? Chihiro Snow's eyes lit up. If he could have a martial soul fusion skill with Obuchi, it should be a very good thing. Actually, the angel god's reward reminded me that there are only 3 methods to increase the compatibility between our martial souls. What 3 methods? Chihiro Snow asked curiously. First, inject the holy power of the angel into my Golden Dragon martial soul, just like what the angel god did just now. Second, inject more holy power into your Eight-Winged Angel martial soul. This can also increase the compatibility. What about the third method? Her beautiful eyes blinked as she carefully observed Lu Yuan. The corners of Lu Yuan's mouth curled into a devilish smile as he looked at Chihiro Snow and said softly, as for the third method, that is to further communicate with each other. The more we communicate, the closer our relationship will become, and the better our tacit understanding will be. You're so bad. Qianrenshua blushed when she heard Lu Yuan say such things. She hit Lu Yuan with her jade-like hand. Her grandfather was still here. Chihiro Snow thought and tilted his head slightly, but he didn't see Sendoryu. Stop looking. That old man has already left. Lu Yuan's indifferent voice sounded. What did you leave? Why didn't I notice it? Chihiro Snow said. Of course you didn't notice. You were in a daze at that time. What could you have noticed? Lu Yuan giggled. Bah, you're still talking about it. Hearing Lu Yuan teasing him like this, Chihiro Snow immediately became angry. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he pounced on Lu Yuan. Hey, are you walking right into a trap? Lu Yuan caught Chihiro Snow and pulled him into his arms with his right hand. Lu Yuan's current strength was so great that Chihiro Snow couldn't move at all. Seeing that he couldn't break free, Chihiro Snow stopped struggling. He only looked at Lu Yuan with a pair of golden eyes. Being stared at like this, Lu Yuan naturally didn't feel embarrassed. He smiled and whispered into Chihiro Snow's ear, Remember to wash yourself clean tonight, okay? I'll be there when the time comes. The hot air hit Chihiro Snow's ear and dyed it red. Pervert! Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. Yes, I'm lusting after your body. I've been lusting after your body for a long time. It's not like you don't know. Lu Yuan said with a chuckle. Rascal! Seeing Lu Yuan say such words, Chihiro Snow suddenly had no choice. After all, he didn't even care about his face. What would you do to him? Didn't you ask Hulina to go back and wash herself clean? Why are you dragging me in? Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. You already asked Hulina to prepare. Why are you dragging me in? Do you think that with my strength, senior sister can deal with me alone? Lu Yuan smiled, and his smile was particularly bright. Looking at Lu Yuan's smile, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but roll his eyes. And this guy is indeed right. Whether it's me or Hulina, if one person, maybe they can't deal with this guy at all. But the two of them together, this guy was dreaming too much. Oh yes, Cher, you don't have any objections, right? Then it's settled. You'll go back to Lake Hard Island with me later. Lu Yuan said, hearing that this guy didn't even ask her and directly made the decision. Chihiro Snow couldn't help but feel angry and amused. But since she said that she would no longer be willful and would try to listen to him, then she would turn a blind eye to this kind of thing. She wouldn't agree or disagree. After all, that kind of thing was also what she should do as Obuchi's woman. Just to let her go back to Lake Hard Island with him? That's Bibidin's territory. Chihiro Snow still had some resistance in her heart. Obuchi, can we not go to Lake Hard Island? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a trace of pleading in her beautiful eyes. Her face looked delicate and pitiful, which really made one's heart ache. Of course, I can't. Lu Yuan directly chose to refuse under Chihiro Snow's expectant gaze. Obuchi. Chihiro Snow's tone became gentle with a trace of coquettishness. Let's not go to Lake Hard Island, okay? No, we have to go. This is non-negotiable. Lu Yuan once again rejected Chihiro Snow's request. The relationship between Bibidon and Chihiro Snow was still too stiff. This kind of relationship still needed to be eased. It was undoubtedly difficult to get Bibidon to take the initiative. However, Lu Yuan could bring Chihiro Snow over. At the very least, Bibidon's love for Chihiro Snow was real. Both of them were people that Lu Yuan cared about. Lu Yuan also did not want their relationship to continue to be so bad. That was not what he wanted to see. One clearly cared about her daughter, while the other craved motherly love. However, they just had to act like enemies. They loathed each other and resented each other. This relationship between mother and daughter was really a headache. This damned Chihiro disease. All the trouble was caused by this guy. If he was still alive, Lu Yuan would definitely skin him alive. What a troublemaker. However, Chihiro disease was already dead. It was useless to curse him. He could not possibly dig up his grave and then whip his corpse, right? That might not be good. Other things aside, if he really did that, Chihiro Snow would definitely fall out with him. What he could do now was to do his best to improve their relationship. Even if they could not return to their normal mother-daughter relationship, at the very least, they should not hate each other anymore. Chapter 469. Hushin Pavilion. On the stone table, 5 people sat together and were having dinner. The atmosphere at the table was a bit strange, especially when Chihiro Snow and Bibidon were sitting opposite each other. Hulaina held her bowl and didn't say a word. Zhu Zhuqing lowered her head and ate her meal quietly. Although Chihiro Snow was unwilling, he was pulled to Hushin Island under the strong request of Lu Yuan. After all, when Lu Yuan was serious, even Chihiro Snow could only be obedient. Moreover, Lu Yuan really wanted to ease the relationship between the mother and daughter. Perhaps it was not something that could be explained in a few words, but after living together for a long time and seeing each other frequently, their relationship would definitely improve. Teacher, please eat. Lu Yuan smiled slightly, picked up the chopsticks, and put it in Bibidon's bowl. In. Bibidon nodded gently. Her face was calm, but there was a trace of complexity in her eyes. With her intelligence, how could she not see Lu Yuan's intention? It was to improve the relationship between her and Chihiro Snow. But she was helpless because there was a knot in her heart. Every time she saw Chihiro Snow, she would think of the beast in human face, and the disgust in her heart would arise spontaneously. How could she not know that Chihiro Snow was innocent? She also cared for Chihiro Snow in her heart. After all, he was her flesh and blood. She could not really not care at all, but she really could not get over the barrier in her heart. That was the nightmare of her life, and she could not forget it all. Cher, you also eat some food. Lu Yuan also picked up some food with his chopsticks and put it in Chihiro Snow's bowl. Chihiro Snow had been in a daze ever since she came to the table. Her heart was also very complicated. She wanted her mother's love, but she also hated Bibi Dawn from the bottom of her heart. She had infiltrated the Heaven Do Empire in order to overthrow the Heaven Do Empire. On one hand, it was for the sake of the martial Soul Palace. On the other hand, wasn't it to prove herself to Bibi Dawn? Chihiro Snow had a stubborn personality. She wanted to be recognized by her mother, Bibi Dawn, but she was not willing to lower herself to please her. She did not even want to see Bibi Dawn. If it was not for Lu Yuan, she might not have sat at the same table as Bibi Dawn in this lifetime. Share. Lu Yuan patted Chihiro Snow's shoulder. His gaze was gentle, and there was a warm smile on his face. Looking at the gentle smile on Lu Yuan's face, Chihiro Snow thought of his good intentions. She sighed and picked up her chopsticks to eat. No matter what Bibi Dawn thought, she was Obuchi's woman. Obuchi cared for her so much. She couldn't embarrass him. Moreover, she did have a trace of desire to reconcile with Bibi Dawn in her heart. Putting everything else aside, she had already made her stance. Her willingness to come to the island in the middle of the lake meant that she had already lowered her head. The rest was up to Bibi Dawn. Looking at Qianrenchua's actions, Lu Yuan could not help but secretly nod his head. No matter what, Shui-Er's personality had changed a lot after returning this time. She had become more obedient, less arrogant and willful, and more gentle and considerate. Although the stubbornness in her bones was still there, Lu Yuan didn't care. If even this bit of stubbornness wasn't there, then Chihiro Snow wouldn't be Chihiro Snow. Looking at Bibi Dawn, then looking at Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan suddenly smiled. His face was brimming with happiness and happiness. Junior, what are you smiling about? Hulina asked, puzzled. Nothing. I'm just happy to be able to eat with Cher and Teacher at the same table. This is the first time since I joined the Martial Soul Palace. Lu Yuan said softly. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow and Bibi Dawn couldn't help but raise their heads at the same time. Their eyes met, and then they instantly looked away. A trace of complex emotions flashed through their eyes. After the meal, the dishes on the stone table had already been removed. A few cups of tea were placed on the table. The freshly brewed tea was steaming hot, with a faint mist rising from it. Taking a sip of the tea, Lu Yuan said gently, Teacher, I have some matters to discuss with you in private. Oh. Hearing this, Bibi Dawn raised her beautiful eyes and glanced at Lu Yuan. Then she said softly, Okay, then come to my place to talk. Saying this, Bibi Dawn stood up. You guys chat. I'll leave first. Obuchi, come over later. Okay, teacher, take care, Lu Yuan said. After Bibi Dawn left, the atmosphere in the pavilion immediately changed. The oppressive feeling instantly disappeared without a trace. Hulina let out a deep breath. Her jade-like hand patted her chest. That strange atmosphere just now really made her feel uncomfortable. Originally, when she was with her junior, she had a lot to say. However, in that atmosphere just now, she didn't dare to say a single word. Zhu Zhuqing was the same. Bibi Dawn and Chihiro Snow's aura was too strong. Other than Lu Yuan, who was calm and composed, she and Hulina were trembling. Now that Bibi Dawn left, she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Obuchi, you're going to look for her later. Is there something you want to talk about? Chihiro Snow raised his head slightly and looked at Lu Yuan. Could it be that Obuchi went to look for Bibi Dawn because of him? Well, there are some important things to talk about. Gently rubbing Chihiro Snow's head, Lu Yuan smiled and said, Cher, you stay on the island in the middle of the lake tonight. For the time being, you can sleep with Zhu Qing. Tomorrow, I'll get someone to tidy up your room. You can stay here in the future. Obuchi, you're not allowed to refuse. It's settled. Without giving Chihiro Snow a chance to refuse, Lu Yuan directly made the decision. Zhu Qing, take Cher to your room later. Lu Yuan said to Zhu Zhuqing. Okay. Zhu Zhuqing nodded and then asked, What about you? Where are you sleeping tonight? Of course, I'm going back to my room to sleep. Lu Yuan smiled and said, Go back to your room to sleep? Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Hulina's eyes flashed. Isn't Lu Yuan's room her room? After all, Their rooms were together. Thinking of this, Hulina's eyes couldn't help but curve into a crescent moon. Well, that's it for the time being. I'll go to the teacher first. If there's anything, we'll talk about it tomorrow, Lu Yuan said and turned to walk outside. Suddenly, Lu Yuan's footsteps paused and said, "Right, I've been away for a year. I don't know how your strength is progressing. Tomorrow, I'll test your strength to see how much you've improved. Don't think about running. Zhu Qing, senior sister, and Cher, none of you can run away. If I find that you haven't improved tomorrow, then you'll suffer. I'll punish you guys well." Lu Yuan smiled faintly, and there was a trace of inexplicable emotion in his tone. Chapter 470. In a somewhat antique room, Bibidin's figure appeared. She was sitting in front of the table, holding a document in her hand. This was some information from the martial spirit branch hall below. Bibidon was a very skilled person, and she was also quite diligent in government affairs. She usually liked to flip through these documents after eating and when she had nothing to do. Hearing the footsteps outside the door, Bibidin's beautiful eyes that were looking at the document paused, and her red lips opened slightly. "Is it Obuchi? Come in." "Teacher." A series of footsteps sounded, and Lu Yuan's figure appeared. He bowed to Bibidon. Bibidon put down the document and looked at the tall and straight figure in front of her. His face was handsome, and his temperament was like an immortal. There was almost no flaw to be found, and there was a strong sense of pride in her heart. This was her, Bibidin's disciple, a disciple that she had nurtured single-handedly. He was fully deserving of being a dragon among men. Whether it was talent, strength, or appearance, this disciple in front of her was so satisfactory. "Come and sit, Obuchi." Bibidon smiled sweetly, and her beautiful smile seemed to sprinkle the bright spring light. At this moment, she really had an indescribable beauty. Even with Lu Yuan's composure, he couldn't help but be a little dazzled, as expected of the person who could give birth to such a peerless figure like Cher. Bibidon herself was also a great beauty that could topple the world. "Yes, teacher," Lu Yuan responded and sat down on the chair next to Bibidon. "Obuchi, you've matured a lot in this year." Looking at the current Lu Yuan, although he was only 14 years old, he was already like a 17 or 18-year-old youth. The immaturity on his face had gradually faded, and in turn, there was a sense of maturity. This disciple of hers had really grown a lot. "Your soul power has reached rank 57? Bibidon asked. "Yes, it has indeed reached rank 57, Lu Yuan responded. He wasn't surprised that Bibidon could see his strength at a glance. Since Sindoryu could see it, then Bibidon could naturally see it too. Her realm was no lower than Sindoryu's. The reason why she was slightly weaker in strength was that she couldn't use all of her strength because of the Rakshasa inheritance. However, thinking of the Rakshasa deity, Lu Yuan's heart always felt a little uncomfortable. This guy was too dark, evil, and ugly. Apart from Chihiro disease and Yu Shaojing, the reason why Bibidon had become like this, and Rakshasa of God, of the Chihiro disease and Yu Shaojing. It even developed to the point of madness. The Rakshasa deity was definitely not a good thing. This god was the god of evil thoughts. If Bibidon didn't get rid of this Rakshasa inheritance, Lu Yuan was worried that one day she would become like in the original work. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but think of the Neptune's heart in his mind. This thing was the inheritance of the Neptune. After it was intercepted by him, it had been placed in his sea of consciousness. Moreover, he wasn't very interested in the Neptune's deity position. But no matter what, the Neptune's deity position was still a first-class deity position. Moreover, the Neptune was the top existence among first-class deities. His strength was much stronger than that of the Rakshasa deity. If it was given to Bibidon, would it be better? Moreover, with Bibidon's talent, it was enough to trigger the Neptune's 9 tests. Instead of letting Tang, San pick up the scraps in the future, it was better to give the Neptune's deity position to Bibidon. It could be considered keeping the goodies within the family. Seeing that Lu Yuan was staring at him in a daze after he finished speaking, Bibidon couldn't help but be a little puzzled. Was there something on his face? Obuchi, Bibidon called softly. Hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan instantly recovered from his daze. What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed in your thoughts? Bibidon asked. No, nothing. It's just that teacher is too beautiful. So, I was a little dazed for a while, Lu Yuan said with a smile. Bah, glib tongue, not serious at all. You only know how to say nice things to coax people. Teacher is not little girls like Nana and Zhu Qing. I don't fall for this. Bibidon glared at Lu Yuan with her beautiful eyes. This little disciple of hers. Had he coaxed too many little girls? He even dared to do this in front of her. Tell me, why are you looking for teacher? Bibidon said in a bad mood. Yes, it's just that I have a gift for teacher. Lu Yuan smiled slightly. You have a gift for me? Bibidon's beautiful eyes lit up slightly. She gently sized up Lu Yuan with a smile on her face. At least you have some conscience. You know how to be filial to your teacher. You're not like that little girl, Nana. Other than junior brother, all she talks about is junior brother. She doesn't care about me at all. Bibidon's tone was subtle, and there was a hint of jealousy in it. She had painstakingly raised this disciple of hers, but in the end, he had his heart set on another disciple and didn't care about her at all. How could she not feel jealous in her heart? Fortunately, this little disciple of hers still had a conscience and knew to bring her a gift. Her love for him wasn't in vain. After hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan chuckled and didn't comment. Indeed, Ulina had devoted her heart and soul to him. So this time, he decided to give Ulina the torso bone of the ant emperor that he had obtained from the bear lord as a reward for her. Take it out. I want to see what you're going to give me. Bibidon smiled slightly and said, Teacher, please wait a moment. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. With a wave of his spiritual power, a ball of light enveloped in a dense white light flew out from between Lu Yuan's brows. Then, it expanded slightly and landed in Lu Yuan's hand. Teacher here. Lu Yuan handed the white ball of light in his hand to Bibidon. What is this? Bibidon looked at the white ball of light in his hand and was a little puzzled. This is actually the external soul bone of a 10,000-year man-faced demonic spider. Back then, I hunted a 10,000-year man-faced demonic spider in the setting sun forest and obtained this external soul bone. I thought that teacher's martial souls were the Death Spider Emperor and the Soul-Devouring Pearl Emperor, which would be very compatible with this external soul bone. So I wrapped it in my divine power and hid it in my sea of consciousness. I'll give it to teacher when we return to Martial Spirit City. Lu Yuan said softly. Obuchi, looking at the white ball of light in his hand, Bibidon was a little touched. In her life, no one had ever cared about her like this. Furthermore, the external soul bone was a priceless treasure. Not only did this disciple of hers not absorb it for himself, but he even brought it back for her. He was really good to her. She really didn't accept Obuchi as her disciple for nothing. Bibidon thought to herself. Looking at the white ball in his hand, a gentle look flashed across Bibidon's eyes. She raised her empty hand and gently rubbed Lu Yuan's head. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.